Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 251st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me this evening we have Rob Kelly, Ozzy Smith, Andy Patterson, and Mr. Comeback on the comeback trail, Adam Smido Smith. We've got plenty going on this weekend. There's also a few light previews for next week, value of the weeks, Twitter questions, usual stuff. And we have a very special guest joining us any time from now, really. The next 5 minutes he'll be jumping on, so we're looking forward to that. I was debating where to start this weekend, actually. I think we'll go over to the Metro Radio Arena in Newcastle for the Liam Smith-Liam Williams rematch. This was the fight I was looking forward to most over the weekend. It didn't quite live up to expectations, unfortunately, Ozzy, but you were there. Let's have a look at the scores, shall we? 117, 111, 116, 112 in Liam Smith's favour, and a 114, 114 card, which was more closer to my viewing of the fight. Maybe I had it way off. I don't know what you were thinking from inside the arena, but I thought it was perhaps a little bit closer than the commentary team had, but the judges made it right. They seem to have it more accurate than me. What did you think?
I had Liam Williams winning it by a round. So when I heard the 117, 111 and 116, 112 cards, I was naturally disappointed. I couldn't have argued with a draw, and I couldn't have argued with Smith pinching it by a round. But it's these wide cards again, and coming from, and I was sat around a lot of people, and they all had it around either way. I heard Scott Quigg after the fight, and he felt Liam Smith had it by a round as well. Now, Quigg's a teammate of his, and obviously you would think he's biased and he would agree with the cards, but for him to criticise them, I think Jamie Moore criticised them as well, but the BT commentary team, I think it was John Rowling and Barry Jones last night, they essentially scored the fight the way two of the judges did, it was interesting.
Yeah, Smith fought a different fight, Ozzy. He came at it from the beginning and threw a few more punches. He said in the last one that, you know, for the first 6 rounds, a lot of people would have beaten him, and he seemed to justify his reasoning beforehand that he wasn't maybe up to it. I know that he missed weight in the first fight, so perhaps he wasn't firing, you know, all guns blazing.
Yeah, I think it was a fight that nobody really expected. I think particularly after the first one, I think everybody was hoping it was going to erupt and get into something similar, but it was more like a bit of a chess match at times, and it was quite intriguing. It was and it was a difficult 1-2 score. I was quite impressed with them both, to be honest. I thought Liam Williams started the better. I know we were discussing briefly about it last night, and I felt he got into a lead, and then it's like he slowed down, switched off, and Smith took over. And then it became a lot more tighter. But I was impressed with Liam Smith's jab last night. I thought that was a big help in this. And he displayed
the uppercut too a little bit, Ozzy.
Yeah,
the uppercut.
Yeah, he landed that. But so did Liam Williams as well. Both of them had success with the uppercut. Probably the punches of the fights, actually. But Liam Smith showed a side that I would say a lot of people haven't seen ever, or it was from a long time ago, and it was quite interesting, actually, because it shows that he can box, and that if he is to go to the next level, I know he's in for probably a vacant WBO shot, but one card to play of sorts. That saying, I don't think he's good enough to take on any of the big names, light middle, but depending on who he goes with for the vacant shot, should Cotto obviously win against Saddam Ali and vacant. Okay, I don't know who it's been, but no, it was interesting. Like I say, it was one of those that nobody expected it. It was a close fight, but you're discussing 2 cards rather than the fight itself.
Yeah, Rob, just looking at Liam Williams, he obviously, in the first fight, he really put a lot into the early rounds. And even though I thought he was winning them this time, he seemed to be leaving a little bit back. You know, it was maybe he was trying to preserve a little bit in the tank, because he did gas late on in the first fight. So he seemed to have that in mind throughout the later rounds.
Yeah, I thought the cards were pretty wide too. I thought the commentators, and I like Barry Jones normally, but I thought Rawling particularly last night was very kind of pro Liam Smith and kind of not mentioning the clean work that Williams was doing. Like Williams' problem in the fight was that he didn't really have the power to hurt Smith. He didn't have much trouble finding him behind the high guard. He was able to to land with some combinations. He wasn't snapping them off quite as quickly as we thought he would, but I still think the cleaner work in the early rounds was coming from Williams, and that Smith was smothering his work a little bit. As it went on, just the strength of Smith started to play a factor. That Williams wasn't strong enough to really kind of force him back or whatever. But big fifth round from Williams. I thought he was going to take over from that point in the fight. I thought he had Smith genuinely worried, but he just kind of plotted his way back into the fight, I guess. And I suppose you can't really complain one round either way. But again, the cards are just wide. But I didn't like that from Rawling last night. I thought Williams was clearly doing the clean work, and the only one pulling for him was Barry Jones at times on the card, which is disappointing from Box Nation considering the position that they're in. But it was a good fight. We didn't probably live up to the first one, but we have a definitive winner now, and Smith will move on. But I tell you what, anyone that wants to put him on the back foot is going to beat him, because he cannot box on the back foot, and he's so basic. He's nothing to get excited about, is he?
Not really. Was there anything on the undercard that excited you, Rob?
Don't know, Steve. Didn't see it, man. Tuned in late. I was watching Ireland against Denmark, which was the worst decision. I should have probably watched the undercard. But hold on, I'm going to try and get Andy on this call here. He's having trouble getting on the app. So
no problem. Thanks, Rob. Rob's going to try and get Andy Lee on the call, hopefully. Andy Patterson, our resident Andy, just looking forward for Liam Smith. He's ranked quite highly with the WBO now. We expect Cotto to drop that belt. So do you think Smith can mix it at world level? I suppose to a certain degree he can if he's matched against, say, I don't know, someone from the top 10 Margaritos hanging around there. You've got Dennis Hogan would probably be easy enough to get over. Does he have to beat someone like that, like in a not truly world-class type fight?
Jimmy Kelly rematch, mate.
Oh, God, no.
I had a look at the rankings earlier on. Did you say Margarito was ranked like 11th? I mean, I think the bodies themselves, like WBC and the WBO specifically, and even the WBA this week or the last couple of weeks, have had an absolute nightmare with some of their rankings. Like that kind of Islam's hanging around. He's a decent enough fighter. I think him against Smith actually might be a wee bit of a mini war. Chavez kicking around. Here, just the question actually, is Cotto definitely vacating that title, or is he going to be defending it against Ali?
No. Well, sorry, he claims he's going to retire, so naturally you think he will beat Ali and then chuck it away. Hence, where the talk is it's going to be for a vacant shot. You never know; he may make a U-turn. He wins, and then it's Cotto Smith, or you never know. Ali could beat him. Highly doubt it, but so that's where the talk for the vacant belt's coming from.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Andy. We're expecting, if not before, especially after at the Ali fight, it will be vacant.
The other thing as well, obviously if it's vacant, then you're going to have to get Liam Williams against, you call him Magomed Kurbanov, so tough fight for him. As I say, I've not seen the fight at all, but because obviously I was at the Josh Taylor fight last night, and I've had an absolute nightmare of a day trying to catch up with stuff. But Smith, as we all know, I've never really been kind of high on. He is tough. He will stand in the pocket and stuff, and he will try and kind of bang and stuff. But as Rob says, fighting off that back foot is going to be his undoing. And even as I say, Islam and Kurbanov, I think they would actually kind of toy, not so much toy him, but I think they would actually kind of beat him pretty bad.
Smido, your namesake Liam, grabbing the wins as usual. Fair play for him to take in this rematch. And another thing that I was surprised of, there wasn't really any sort of egregious headwork going in. I was expecting them both to look like they were on a butcher's slab at the end of the fight, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, there was a couple of incidents where I think Liam Smith had a couple of dabs of his eyebrows at some points, but yeah, nothing major of bad blood. There was some bad blood or skullduggery on the one of the undercard fights, which we'll come to, but. I agree with what you said, Steve. I thought Liam Williams consciously fought a different fight than he did last time. He knew he made mistakes last time in terms of his gas tank, and I think he fought that way this time, scared of running out of gas down the stretch as he did in Manchester. And I think as a result, he just wasn't going for it enough. He wasn't throwing enough punches. I gave him the first 2 rounds, Williams, and then between rounds 3 and 8 inclusive, he just wasn't doing enough. I can't remember exactly which way I went with all those rounds, but I had Liam Smith winning the majority of them. I had the fight 7-5 to Smith in the end. I thought Williams came back. I think the 10th was pretty good, but he should have just been throwing more punches. Williams. Smith is he does block a lot of shots, and he's happy to take a lot of shots on the gloves. Now, I'm not saying that they're going, that's going to knock people out if you're throwing at the gloves, but at least it does catch the eyes of the judges that you are working. And if you throw four, one of them might get through. And Williams wasn't doing that. He wasn't committing to attacks like that to force the guard or force an opening. Both were working the body okay. Both brought the uppercuts into play, but not massively consistently. And I thought Liam Smith did the best. Really, I think he deserved it. It's probably the best we've seen him, which isn't saying a lot because he's fought some absolute trash. He jabbed quite well, and I thought he controlled the ring quite well. He had the centre of the ring regularly enough to make it count. But to be honest, the pair of them aren't going to cause much damage at world level, even if it is a vacant WBO. I mean, he might win it against someone that we've not heard of at the lower reaches of the WBO top 15. But then when he fights one of the big boys, he'll get undone again, like he did with Canelo last time. So overall, I was disappointed in the approach from Liam Williams.
Smido's disappointed. Sorry to hear that, Smid. Hopefully some of the fights later on will make you a little bit happier. Let's go on to the undercard, Ozzy. You were there last night, as you said. Some decent scraps, actually. Gorman against Saltby, unfortunately, didn't end up being as good as maybe we thought Gorman-Webb would have been. I suppose the fact that Webb wasn't in the fight, he maybe didn't fancy it or something. That's what I'm hearing. I don't really know the ins and outs, but Saltby was just too small, Ozzy. I thought, being a couple of stone lighter than Gorman. But just looking at this Foot against Leather fight, it was a really good scrap. I didn't score it, but a lot of people seem to think that Foot had maybe done enough there, and Leather's quite highly touted.
Brilliant fight. One of the fights of the year. Really enjoyed it. Fight of the night. I thought it was close. I couldn't have argued with it either fight getting it or a draw again. I edged Foot, but I thought he had 2 points deducted, and I thought this could play a big part, this. But again, we're looking at one card of 115, 110, and there was no way Josh Leather by 5 rounds. In the second round, he was flat on his backside and looked gone. Fair play to him. He showed a lot of bottle to get up and fight through that. And at times I thought Glenn Foot, old man him, leaning on him. But strangely, he kept spitting his mouthpiece out. And he was warned and warned. Anyway, I think he lost 2 points because of that. Or the 1 point. And it ultimately proved a decisive factor. I would love to see it again. Really would. The atmosphere was absolutely superb. Really, really good. And this is what you want to see. It's two local fighters putting it on the line. I don't care about the belt, IBF, East-West title or something like that. Couldn't give a toss about that. It means bugger all. The fact that they were both going in made it enjoyable. Leather, highly rated. The home fighter, Foot, sold quite a few tickets and he was well supported there. And it was really, really good. And like I say, I would happily see it again purely for the fact that I don't think there was a definitive winner. And you mentioned Nathan Gorman. I agree, Saltby looks small. He's boxed at cruiserweight, actually, and I heard a few decent things about him, but I think he got hit early on, and Gorman realised he could hurt him, and he went into a bit of a shell of sorts, did Saltby, but I think there's a lot to like about Nathan Gorman. He's obviously trained by Ricky Hatton. He's quite quick for a big guy. He can obviously punch, and he comes across really well. No bullshit, like I'm going to do this, and this. He takes each fight as it comes. The story behind the Webb fight was essentially they offered Gorman about 2-3 weeks out the Saltby fight, and he took it purely for the fact because there was a WBC international belt on the line, and he's gone for the world ranking instead of obviously the more old-fashioned English, British, Commonwealth route, which is a shame, really, because I would have rather seen the Webb fight, but it's gone. It was a relatively decent performance. Jeff Saunders, brother of Bradley Saunders, got a solid win over Stephen Lewis. Mark Heffron, I think there's a lot to like about this guy. He became the first person to stop Lewis Taylor, who arguably was having a lot of success against Jamie Cox. on the Kell Brook undercard. And then there was a couple of young prospects on further down the card. Oh, and Tommy Ward against Sean Davis for the British Super Bantamweight title. Really good again. Really enjoyed it. Both guys couldn't really punch at all. So at times they were just teeing off, landing clean, and it didn't really do anything, but it was great to watch. Tommy Ward, he's got a lot of skills. He's got a lot of talent, and I think he can get to a high level. I just wonder how high he can get, because when you get to that world level, if you can't punch, it's difficult to keep the quality people off you or at distance. But all in all, real good card put together by Frank and his team, and so kudos to Jason McClory, the matchmaker. He's put some real good bouts on last night.
You going to say something quickly there, Smid?
Yeah, I only saw the leather and foot fight, and I disagree with Ozzy. Sorry about the. I don't think leather was gone when he put him down. Foot early doors was throwing like a fake jab followed swiftly by the right hand, and that's obviously what put leather down. And I was watching it with the missus this morning, having not knowing the result, and I said he's going to walk onto a right hand here in a minute, and that's what he did. It obviously wasn't a flash knockdown, but I don't think he was really badly hurt, to be honest. And then he survived thereafter, and he got and I think leather just got cute to that little combination that Foot was throwing, and as the fight went on, Foot landed it a lot less. Foot did outman him a lot of the time, out experienced him as well. With they were both, we had punching after the break, we had low blows, head. I mean, Foot was warned for the head. Must have been official warnings, I think, were maybe 3, but the ref was, just having a quick tap on the head. Must have happened double figure times, as if to say, pack that in, rather than a stop in the action and a proper warning, if you see what I mean. But Foot didn't actually get any points taken off the use of the head. It was, as Ozzy said, the gum shield. I think they had a second gum shield. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that. Whereas fighters use 2 separate gum shields in the same fight, and then the second one came out as well, so that was where his point off there. And then there was hitting after the break. I mean, it was interesting because Leather was trying to do similar things to Foot, holding on the inside, little dig after the break, having a word after the bell, but he was getting caught doing it, and the older, more experienced Foot was kind of doing it on, or getting away with it. I wouldn't say he wasn't getting caught, because the ref was constantly talking to him, but he was getting away with it by hook or by crook. My card was basically 6 rounds apiece. I thought there was a couple that were really difficult to score, particularly the last. I found the last really difficult to score myself. 6 rounds apiece, so that makes a total, given points off and knockdown, 1-1-3 to 1-1-12 to Leather. So the misbehaviours of Foot has cost him the fight. I think that's quite clear.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Smido. We will return to this card very shortly. Just before we do, let's quickly hop across to America. Rob Kelly, Danny Jacobs, Luis Arias, Matchroom Boxing USA's first venture into the American market. What did you think of it overall, and about Jacobs' performance?
Yeah, I was disappointed in the Cuban. I was like, I hinted last week I could be. I hadn't actually seen him before that. I read up a little bit about him. He seemed like he was pretty skilled, but Jacobs just seemed a lot stronger overall. Dominated him. The knockdown was a bit suspect. He hit him with his elbow, I think. The Cuban was swinging wild a lot of the times, which is unusual for Cuban fighters. Normally, a lot of the punches are straight down the middle. They're schooled in that. So his wild punches were a little bit surprising. He wasn't much of an opponent, really, and we didn't really learn anything else from seeing Jacobs beating him, other than anything that we already know is that he's probably the number 2 middleweight outside of Golovkin and Canelo. Maybe Saunders would argue he's in there, but he's certainly up there in the middleweight division. It's a remarkable transition, really, for Danny Jacobs, because ever since he knocked out Peter Quillen and took Golovkin the distance and arguably won the fight to some people, he's the guy that was having trouble with Sergio the Snake Mora less than 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Now, I know he's been ill and he's made his recovery now, and maybe we're seeing that, or maybe we're seeing something else. You know what I mean? But Aaron Verhaan, Eddie's out there, he's pumping him up. And now we're hearing rumors that we might not see Canelo and Golovkin next, so maybe Jacobs will be in the shake-up there. But I wouldn't be in a hurry to put Canelo in with Jacobs. I think Jacobs has a style that might trouble Canelo. if Canelo doesn't win, he definitely is not going. I don't think he's going to look good fighting against Danny Jacobs. Like he's a very big middleweight.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Yep, brilliant. Thanks, Rob. Joining us on the line now, we couldn't quite get him on Hangouts, but we have him on the phone, thankfully, former WBO middleweight champion Andy Lee. How you sounding, Andy?
All right, Steve, how are you?
I'm not too bad. Thanks for joining us this evening. We won't keep you for too long, but we were just talking there about the Danny Jacobs-Luis-Arias fight last night. Obviously something you would be keeping an eye on. You've been linked to Jacobs in the past. Did you see the fight? And if so, what did you make of it?
This morning, yeah, look good. Level. Just very poised. Arias just a little bit overmatched, you know, just a little bit overmatched in all areas. And he's outpaced, outsped, experienced, and even outgunned. So yeah, won by Danny Jacobs, you know, but it was a favourable match, you know. The fight was heavily in his favour going into it, and that's what proved when they fought each other.
What about yourself, Andy? You're training away at the moment. What's on the horizons for yourself?
Nothing really solid, like plans at the moment. But to fight again, if it's the right fight, I'm always keeping in shape anyway. I still go to the gym maybe 4 or 5 days a week and train. So I keep in shape. And if the right fight is off to me, one that's a meaningful fight, then I will take it, you know, and I'll return to the ring. But we'll see it. There's been a few calls over the last while, and just weighing up my options and seeing, you know, it'll probably be next year, March or April, if I do fight again.
And one question I always ask people who come on the pod, I'm sure, you know, you've been around as an amateur and a pro for a long time now. Who are some of the better guys you've sparred with over the years, some of the more talented opponents that you've been in with in sparring?
Very hard. A long time, all my life, really. I don't know, being very lucky to being with Emmanuel Stewart for all those years. I got to train and spar with some of the best in America. Over the last, you know, those years from 2006 to 2012, those 6-7 years, I was with Emmanuel. Trained Kermit Tron at Dawson, Donna Stevenson, Hunt. You can't even name it. Like the amount of top fighters I sparred. One that I sparred recently, and he's only a kid. Josh Kelly. He joined the Boxing Group gym recently, and in his first day in the gym, he jumped in. Billy Joe Saunders was training with us at the time. He was in the gym with us, and his first day sparring was he had to go in against me and then Billy Joe Saunders. And for a kid coming out of the amateurs who'd never had a pro fight, they'd never really been around pro boxing that much, it didn't seem to bother him one bit. He didn't seem intimidated. It wasn't arrogant. It wasn't cocky. But he didn't feel out of place, and he held his own in both spars. You know, as an amateur, just about to turn pro, and I think he's a real special talent, Josh Kelly.
Just a final question for me before bringing a couple of the guys from the panel to ask you a question there. Just very briefly on Emmanuel Stewart, obviously a huge influence, and I remember Emmanuel down in Limerick with you and Joey Gamache in your fights with the likes of Mamadou Thiam and Afif Belgacham. Such a character and such a wealth of experience in the sport, Emmanuel.
Yeah, unbelievable, and so fortunate. I was so just to be not just to be trained by him and managed by him, but to live with him and travel around America and around the world with him as a young man. I just couldn't have asked for a better mentor. So yeah, he sadly missed to think about him every day, and those are some of the best times of my life I spent with him. And like I said, I was thinking about him every day. He was, Rob was on the line. Rob Kelly, he knows Emmanuel pretty well, and they hung out together when he was in Dublin. And always had time for Rob. I always had time for everybody. Even I'm not sure if he ever appeared on your podcast, but we'd often be in the house and every evening to be talking to different reporters, different shows, different phone-ins and things like that. So he always had time for everybody. He made sure to make time for everybody. But he was a class act in and out of the ring, and in life and in boxing, he was the top man, you know.
Yeah, I suppose one of our panel members, Gabe, has asked a question, and I suppose you've answered it really there. He said, what ways do you think that Emmanuel still, you see traces of Emmanuel still in what you do around the ring or in daily life? You know, obviously he has a great influence still on you even to this day.
Yeah, especially in daily life and in the ring. You know, even we just lived together, so we'd cook together all the time. He'd cook, I'd cook. And that's one of the biggest influences that he had on me, funny enough. Just all small little things, little tricks, and you know, whenever, don't barbecue much, but he showed me how to make these famous barbecue ribs. When he used to cook them in Detroit, people would come from all over the neighborhood to come to the house. And he'd always make sure he had enough. He'd maybe cook about 24 slabs of ribs, and people would be coming all day and all night just to get some of these ribs and take them home. But he would be like, I'll be often in the ring sparring or doing something, and it might not be going well, and I just think about something that Emmanuel, like sometimes I'm just clicking, you know, some combination of punches or some little trick, some move, and that Emmanuel would have taught me, and I always smile to myself, like, internally, because I know that, you know, he's still there and his influence still weighs on me. So it's unquantifiable, the amount, you know, the influence he had on my life, but it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest.
Yeah, I just want to remind all our listeners, we've got Andy Lee on the line here, former WBO middleweight champion. We're very conscious of your time, Andy, so I'll open up the questions up to the panel now just briefly. Ozzy, do you have anything you want to ask Andy?
Yeah.
You've got a shirt.
Go ahead. Oh, seem to just...
Sorry,
Ozzy.
yeah, Andy, how do you see the Billy Joe Saunders, David Lemieux fight going?
Hi, Ozzy. I think it's a very good fight, and it's an evenly match fight. You could see ways both guys can win. I'd favour Billy Joe Saunders just because the fights that Lemieux lost against Ataline and Rubio, he was like, they were boxers. Well, they weren't really necessarily boxers, but they kind of boxed him and played around with him and bugged him off a little bit. And I think there's nobody better at being crafty and being clever and moving you around. There's nobody better than using your own strengths against you than Billy Joe Saunders. He's to me, he's very underrated. Like, I even underrated in our fight myself. I looked at him from the outside and I said, you know, I'm going to beat this guy hands down. But when you're in there with him, you realise how good he is. And since we trained together and sparred together, I even have a better appreciation for his skills and what he's capable of. So I favour Billy Joe Saunders, but it's a dangerous fight going to Canada. And it does, like, you know, like this home and away advantage. It is a factor. It does weigh in the fight because just little things like being in a comfortable environment and different surroundings, and you know, Billy Joe's going to have to go there, and just to the time difference, and it'll be very hostile for Billy Joe Saunders. I think, you know, the move attracts a good crowd in Montreal or wherever he did on a fight, so it'll be interesting. I favour Billy Joe Saunders. I think he'll win a points decision. He'll box. He might have to face some adversity, but he's tough as well, Billy Joe. I think he'll win.
Yeah. One of our YouTube listeners has thrown in a question there. He said, do you think that Chavez was better than you expected? Certainly bigger than you expected, maybe?
Yeah, he wasn't better than I expected. He was tough. He was bigger. He was huge. I couldn't move him at all, you know, and just hitting him with my best punches, and it was like, literally, it was like sparring a cruiserweight, you know, or fighting a cruiserweight. He was, like, I could have performed. I used to look back on ways you could have won the fight, have done things better. But when you brought to those, you coming in as a challenger, you do it like little tricks, top rank or whoever it may be, to demoralise you, to try to let you know that you're the opponent. You know, in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, small little things, and like after the weigh-in, saying no, I didn't need to see the doctor then, because we had chosen to stay in our own hotel. We didn't stay at the fight hotel because we knew there'd be a lot of disturbances, and it was right downtown, right next to where Chavez was staying. So, anyway, long story, but they do lots of the small things. And when I got there and I saw like a tiny ring, the ring was it was a 16-foot ring. And I looked at the ring, and my brother said to me, "Small ring." I said, "Yeah." And we walked up to it, and we got inside, and the canvas, it was like a mattress. It was so thick. It was with 3 or 4 layers of sponge. And I just said, I'd like to just set it all up. Like my changing room was the size of like 2 like stalls, and it was everything. Anyway, long story. No, there's no excuses. He beat me on the night, but it wasn't a fair playing field. Not so much with everything outside, but also what was going on inside in terms of the drug testing. That I didn't see any drug testing after the fight. I wasn't drug tested after the fight, and I sure know he was drug tested after the fight. So I'd always he's always been suspicious of me, Chavez Jr. And it's no coincidence when he fights when he fights against a proper fight or fights against somebody who has equal power in terms of promotion or a place where there's a strong commission, like a state where there's a strong commission, then he comes up short when he's not allowed to do what he wants.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that. Actually, we had a female boxer who you will be familiar with on the pod a few months ago, probably last year, Christina McMahon from Carrickmacross, and she had a hell of a time over in Mexico with the drug testing in the WBC.
Yeah, I've heard all about that. I met Christina, and well, look, there's certain places in boxing where you can do what you want, and it should be a criminal offence really to open in boxing, and in any so-called combat sport. It's people's lives are on the line, and when there's money involved, people will always have to get an edge or take an advantage. There's so much money involved that if they can find a way to win, they will.
One of our contributors here, Andy Patterson's on the line. Mr. Patterson, what do you want to ask to Andy?
How you doing, mate? Just on the drug testing situation for Chavez, Randy Nisbet, who was a spokesperson, I think, for the Texas Commission at the time, stated that he's both gave urine samples before the bout. Is that true?
We took a sample before the bout. I took a sample for the bout. They sent the guy in. They had to send someone from their side of the team to come in and watch me to go to the bathroom, so I did. We sent Emmanuel's nephew, Javen Sugarhill, who's ex-Detroit he's ex-Detroit police officer, the toughest city in America, and he doesn't have to, this guy's streetwise and read body language. He went inside he told me he went to Chavez's dressing room. By the time I walked in, Chavez was coming out from where the bathroom stalls were, and he had a jar in his hand, and they were all smiling as if to say, he said, I never saw Chavez go to the bathroom and take a piss. And I never saw, he said it was very suspicious of what was going on there. That was before the fight, but there was no testing after the fight, which would be commonplace, because by the time the test was taken, it was an hour before the fight. What could be done in that hour before the fight? Anyway, look, it's all history. Nothing I can say or do will change it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't naive going into the situation. Manuel was well prepared. I was well prepared. But when it's done that blatantly, it does demoralize you, and you feel like, what am I here fighting for? They set me up to get beat, and it's not. It's just they're doing it to you. They're cheating you, but they almost want you to know they're doing it. They're not doing anything to hide it. It's not covert. It's all done in plain sight, so that they want you to know, we're cheating you. This is what's happening, and you can do nothing about it. It's kind of power. It's like I said, it's demoralizing.
Yeah. So if you could just briefly, mate, I mean, some people who listen to this podcast will say, they're into the history and stuff like that. Can you just let us know, what kind of environment was it to train at the Kronks? Because, you go downstairs and it's absolutely roasting hot, and is it true that the sparring was absolutely all out warfare, yeah?
Yeah, there was no holding back, and like you said, that was an intimidating environment. It was downtown Detroit, tough area, very rough area. I was told when I arrived, just go to the car, get in the car, drive from the car to not veer, go straight to the gym and in the door, and don't stop or say hello to anybody. It was a tough gym, and like I said in the wall, the making or the breaking of somebody. You know, it was if this does led many to fame, many to pain. You know, it was a great gym, just the atmosphere in the gym, and it really was. You had to earn your respect there. Like going there as a young fella from Ireland with Emmanuel, walking in that door and being with Emmanuel, a white kid, tall, skinny white kid. There was, you know, you walk in the door, there's a target on your back, and you have to earn your place in there. I did it. I felt like I did it after a while. After a few spars, and after getting to know it, I was just like treated like everybody else, and it's such a shame that it's gone now. It's physically gone, but the spirit still lives on. They have a Kronk Gym now. Emmanuel's wife runs it in Detroit, and Sherry Hill is the main coach there. So they're still fighting on, and Detroit's a city that'll keep fighting. That's, you know, there's always bad stories about the economical situation in Detroit, but
I was going to ask actually, how's Emmanuel's wife getting on? Because obviously he celebrated with her in the dressing room after he beat Korobov for the world title. How's she doing?
She's doing well. Yeah, I keep in touch more so with Emmanuel's nephew. We became good friends, but I'll always be asking about Marie, Emmanuel's wife, and the rest of the family. But they're all good. You know, it wasn't recently. It was 5 years ago that he passed away. So anniversary there. So I'm sure they're all thinking about him. I should probably give him a call just to say hello again and get in touch with him. But yeah, Marie, like when I moved there, like they really took me in and treated me like one of their own, Emmanuel and Marie and the whole family. And like the fact that she would fly out of her own expense years after Emmanuel's passed away to come watch me fight for the world title, and to be there when I won it was a great gesture, and I'll never forget that, you know.
Yeah, a special moment. Final couple of questions for you, Andy. Gabe Lewis is on the call, the Texas Tornado himself. Gabe, what do you want to ask Andy?
Hey, Andy, how's it going?
Hey, Gabe.
One question.
You've muted yourself there, Gabe. We need to hear you.
Sorry about that. My only question for you is, at the end of the day, when everything's said and done and it's time for you to bow out, what is the legacy that you leave behind, and what is it that you hope is what people remember you for?
I think I'll remember always being in the next fights. I've never been in a blood. Like, there's always drama in some way in my fights. Either I'm getting knocked out, get beat, or I'm beating somebody. I've had some entertaining fights come from behind the good times to win. And you know, if I have to stop boxing now, if I never fight again, I'll be happy with what I've done in the ring. And the times I've had, I've become more champion, and I've fulfilled my dream, and have had some great experiences along the way. So whatever legacy, I think I'll be remembered. I won't be remembered as a great fighter, but someone who had very entertaining fights, some great comebacks, and I'd hope, like, someone who's always, I don't know, had time for people, and a gentleman inside and outside the ring. That's how I'd like to be remembered.
Excellent stuff. Finally, last but by no means least, rapping Rob Kelly, a good friend of Andy's. Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just really wanted to make a point, like, on what you said about Emmanuel having time for everybody, and that was really something I just wanted to thank Andy for, because, you know, I've done a lot of stuff in music, but like to get, like, Andy, like, invited me into the dressing room, had me go to the ring with him. He was in my video. I was there for a lot of his fights. He had me a nervous wreck different nights. Willie Gibbs was another one, like, where I thought I was getting, you know what I mean? And then he pulls a stoppage out of nowhere, like. But I just wanted to thank him for bringing me in and let me experience that, because I'll always remember that, like. But
yeah.
And secondly, that I was so glad that he won the world title, because I always knew he could win the world. From the time I saw him knocking out Carl Daniels before I even knew him,
yeah,
I knew he was going to win a world title. So to do it, when I was actually in the States that night at a wedding with Jay-Z sitting two rows in front of me, and then the next day I'm checking to see his result on the phone. So yeah, so it's been a brilliant career, and if you don't have a fight again, you've done Ireland proud and all the boxing fans proud of all the fights. So.
Thanks, Rob. I still have the I have the photo somewhere back in Limerick of me, you and Emmanuel together. I must dig it up and send it to you.
I have that one. I have that one in the house. I have that one in the house. That's it. Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
Cheers, lad.
That's brilliant, Andy. Thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll be on again one of the days. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good luck. Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, Andy.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.
Andy Lee there. Thanks for Andy coming on. Cheers for sorting that out, Rob. That was great. Good chat with Andy there.
I like Rob just dropping Jay-Z in as well.
No, that's crazy though, because I was at Memphis Bleak's wedding. He's my good friend, and like on the night, like Jay-Z wasn't like fraternizing with the public. He was there like for a while, but he was like 2 rows in front of me. But on the night, I was like, and it was a free bar and everything, and I couldn't get the fight anywhere, so I was going on Twitter to get people to update me on the result, and then I just had a sneaky feeling he was going to do it. So.
Good stuff.
No problem, Rob. No problem. Right, let's move on. Gabe, did you see anything in the Liam Smith-Liam Williams fight? Do you care about that?
I didn't get to see any.
No problem. I think we'll move on to JACOBS-ARIAS. Then I was talking about it earlier with Rob. Andy, I don't know if you got to see anything of this one actually. Jacobs, he looked a lot smaller, didn't he, Arias? You know, they've obviously picked him for a reason. He was shorter. Jacobs looked massive. He was really broad around the shoulders, like a sort of action man, chiseled figure. Not saying anything, but Arias, he just couldn't handle the power, and he was throwing shots from too far out, wasn't he, and getting caught coming in.
It was quite telling me. I just don't think he could cope with the power. Actually, he was just kind of walked, and he tried his best, I suppose. I got to give him credit for last night distance. I did think Jacobs would have stopped him. I've got to take issue with what Eddie Hearn said there last night. Actually, based on both performances, he says that Arias is a world class middleweight, and which makes Danny Jacobs an elite. Well, it's just people know us. I know. Well, I speak to kind of Arias back and forward sometimes on Facebook if he's ever on it and stuff, but he just posted this out here about, 2 hours ago? What a learning experience last night. I'm 10 times better than that, but even with the cards stacked against me, 1 foot most of the fight, I made it all 12 rounds with a big top middleweight. I learned a lot, and the little details will be fixed. Back to climbing the rankings and getting a rematch. Team Arias will be back. So really, he's not really kind of buying that bullshit that Eddie Hearn's saying that he's in a world-class middleweight. As you say, he's been at middleweight all his career. I don't know if it's even possible he can shave down to 154. He might even
thinking that myself, Andy.
Yeah, I don't know how much it would take out of him. It probably would. I mean, what age is he? Mid-20s, late 20s? So you just don't know if it's possible now.
He's young, I think, isn't he?
I need to double-check his age, but yeah, as I say, I got kind of bored at the end of the day. I mean, I didn't really enjoy that card there last night. Even the heavyweight fight was well, that was dire, but I just think it was kind of too one-sided, the kind of Jacobs fight.
That was holy shit.
Yeah. So, yep. Shout out to Mark Murray as well for making himself available for the winner of this fight. That was very much appreciated.
Who saw that coming?
Oh, what? Talk about hurting yourself out pretty quick before the fight even started, eh? But no, I suppose, what else can I say about it? It's Eddie's first venture into America. Typical card of his. Conor Benn fighting a nondescript opponent. Didn't have his Sweet Caroline crowd in, having to give tickets away. I don't know how many were actually sold, but 6,000 in total in the arena.
Yeah, 6,400 and something, I think.
I'd seen some tweets that the tickets were getting sold at discounted prices, some probably getting handed away and stuff, so probably done a wee bit of money there last night, which is always good to know.
Smido, I watched the fight today in work, and I had to keep the sound off. I had it on mute because I couldn't sit at the desk with the sound blaring, and it was a revelation for me. I think from now on, I'm going to watch all Sky shows with no sound. It was brilliant.
Steve, I think that could be the way forward, and I've tried it. I wouldn't say many times, but a fair few times. Do you know what I couldn't bring myself to listen to? Whenever they went back to the studio and Johnny Nelson opened his mouth, I just can't have it. As Big Russ has been saying, he's the biggest company man in the world, in the whole game. As for the fight, I thought Jacobs looked ripped to fuck. He looked chiseled, mate, on that. Apparently he's on the Chris Algieri diet.
Yeah, big neck and everything, Smith.
Oh, wow. So yeah, I'm going to go on that diet as of tomorrow morning. It wasn't the most exciting of fights, was it? Arias was just out of his depth, really. Agree with what you and Andy say. Too small, trying to do his work from too far away. What I would say about the commentary, Steve, last night, I think Paulie Malignaggi is fantastic on the mic, to be honest. Especially for a casual like me, he will highlight things that my eyes don't see. And that's really the definition what a commentator's there to do, is it not? I thought he made some real good points about Jacobs cutting off the ring rather than chasing him round. I know it's very simple stuff, but it's, you know, sometimes, you know, stuff that I don't see. And he was, you know, saying about setting up shots, and everything Arias was doing was reactive rather than proactive. So yeah, I think Jacobs is going to be is definitely well in the mix. I don't think we can give Mr. Hearn a hard time for doing some dough last night and not selling out. It's obviously his first foray over there. He did put a couple of local kids on the undercard, so we can't give him too much stick for that.
It looked good on the box, Smid. I'll give him that. Like, you know, from the ring side and everything, it did give the impression it was sort of full. It looked like a good crowd, yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that definitely. But yeah, Jacobs. I just watched that last night, well, this morning, and I was thinking, I want to see Jacobs in against the Charlo, whichever one it is at middleweight. I think that would be a superb fight. I don't think I expected him to knock Arias out, but he didn't in the end. But I think Arias was tough enough. There's no real negative on Jacobs for not getting the job done. And yeah, well, he's going to keep him busy, which is the typical Eddie Hearn strategy. So yeah, let's bring it on, and then he's right well in the mix. Obviously, Billy Joe's shown that and Frank have shown that he's willing to travel. Frank and Eddie aren't willing to do work together in the UK, but would they be willing to do work together on HBO in the US? Possibly so. So there's plenty of options out there for him, and it should be good. He's an exciting fighter. He'll be in good fights, Jacobs. He's definitely a thinker. He can bang a little bit. He looks solid. He picks his shots well. And as Max Kellerman said afterwards, he does appear like he's a fighter at or very close to his peak. And I think that's true.
You having a go there, Smido, at Johnny Nelson? I was watching a IFL video, actually, which I don't usually do during the week, which with Darren Barker. And Barker, I don't know if he's all week, he sounds like a villain out of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels or something. You know, he sort of talks like that. I mean,
no, I do like Barker, to be fair. I do like Barker, but they don't wheel him out every week, do they? To be honest, I don't think he's the greatest analysis of ever. But I mean, the thing with as a broader comment, the thing with Sky, they managed to get a good-looking female to be an expert on every sport, includes speedway, darts, golf, and then we had a new one from boxing last night. I mean, their recruitment process must be so swayed towards females. But anyway, it's we're living in the 21st century, aren't we? So
Tommy needs to go on that recruitment process.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, let's move on. Who else have we got? Gabe, just looking at Jacobs last night, one thing I didn't like from him was, boy, does this guy like a complaint. He was continuously glancing over at the referee, managing the fight for the referee. Every time Arias hit him with what he perceived to be a low blow, a rabbit punch, a punch in the back, he was glancing over to the ref constantly, all through the 12 rounds. I wasn't really too pleased to see that. It was getting on my nerves.
Yeah, it was. I've seen guys do that before, and
Sven Otka used to be a master of that, Gabe. He always used to draw things to the referee's attention every round.
Yeah, and another recent example was, I say recent. It's been a little while now, but I just rewatched Broner Madonna, and Broner was complaining the whole time. I mean, you see it as long as you watched it. I don't know. I'm on the same page as you. It's annoying as shit. You're not playing, football or basketball or some other sport where the contact is supposed to be a certain way. I mean, it's boxing. You're going to get roughed up. You're going to get hit, and then whenever you turn a certain way, it's going to put a particular portion of your body in position to be hit, whether you're supposed to do that or not. That's part of it. So I think it's just one of those things that happens, but I agree it was stupid as shit. I mean, just suck it up and fight. He wasn't doing anything that was that horrible.
Ozzy, just looking up the rankings here, Jacobs is quite highly ranked with a few different bodies. A Golovkin rematch, possibly. We've got Charlo's quite highly ranked there. Jacobs against Charlo would be something I'd be interested in seeing. I wouldn't be averse to seeing Jacobs against someone like a Derevchenko either. It can be exciting, Jacobs. I think he forced the fight last night, and if he goes in against the contenders in the middleweight division, we can get some good mileage out of him before he retires.
Definitely. I don't think it'd be wrong to say that anyone who can really hit hard, which is what he can do, can be exciting because he can never be ruled out of a fight. Now, I don't know what the plan is next. They did say that is it in March? But I don't think it's going to be one of the... I'm sure Eddie Hearn said it's not going to be one of the real top middleweights, if you were to call them. So I don't really know what way. He did mention the potential winner of Billy Joe and David Lemieux. I suspect that won't happen, and Frank will want to get the winner of, or potentially either Canelo or Golovkin. I don't want him to see him in against Martin Murray. I could not give a toss about that. Martin Murray is irrelevant.
100% agree.
Why he feels... I hate these fighters that feel like they can just worm their way in. Paul Smith's another one. Oh, I want the winner of this. Why? What the fuck have you done? You've not done anything to warrant making that step up whatsoever. It's these people who think the world level, yet they've always lost at world level. That does not mean into these fights. If it happened on 2 weeks' notice because somebody got injured, fine. But I do not care about Danny Jacobs, Martin Murray. It's going to be in New York anyway. They said it's for March. Who we see him with, I'm not too sure. Will Hearn splash the cash only in his second time in? I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, going back to your original point, definitely exciting. He's got ability, and I would agree he is in his peak. So let's get these guys matched now before one goes over the hill. I'd like to see him with Canelo, actually, in the Golovkin fight. Canelo Jacobs would be fun and very exciting.
Steve, I think that the Canelo Golovkin rematch seems to be delayed for whatever reason, and we're not close to having an agreement or a date. So I think they'll just crack on with Jacobs with another second-rate kind of opponent. Couple of things. The knockdown, I've watched the replay. Definitely don't think that was a knockdown. I think
back of the head, wasn't it?
Well, it was almost like the inside of his forearm almost, or wrist kind of area. Yeah, and around the back of the head. Yeah, I don't have that as a knockdown. And my other point is, Eddie Hearn's definition of world and elite level needs looking at immediately. It's so that view is so skewed. And as Ozzy said, the likes of Martin Murray and Paul Smith, and last night an example is Arias. It was a world level opponent, i.e. Danny Jacobs, but just because you've lost, I don't know what the official scorecards were. I turned off, but it was wide. I'm guessing it was wide. That doesn't make you world level. You know, that's like putting Ozzy Smith in there or me in there against Golovkin, losing every round. Does that make me an Aussie world level? Does it? Fuck. So, and then we've got we have. He said last week that who did he say was elite level last week? It's gone out of my head. Kalyafai's elite level. How can what have we done to what? Where's the evidence to see that? And I just the definition of elite and world level is just so skewy from him. I was another thing last night on this show. I was surprised there was only one matchroom fighter on there. I think that's right. Yeah, Conor Benn. I was expecting a little bit more there because I had the feeling that they might try and develop New York with a New York fighter, Danny Jacobs, perfect. But with potentially some Brits going over there to take the British fans over as well, because we have got people, me included, that are daft enough to go international to watch fights. So I was expecting kind of a bigger name than Conor Benn, and a bigger, because Conor Benn don't strike me as to having a fan base. He's just an AJ undercard man, isn't he? Really.
What did he look like, Conor Benn, Smido? Or is it hard to tell?
Not a clue. I put the replay show on, and back in the day, the morning after international fights on Sky, they used to just put the main event on straight away. Well, the 8 o'clock showing, whatever it was I was watching, they went straight in with Conor Benn, so I forwarded past that. I thought, well, why are they pushing that? You know, why don't they just go to the main event? But what they actually did, and they might have been doing it for a while, I might be wrong, they just actually showed the fights in order of the undercard all the way through to the main event. Years ago, back in the day, I remember even watching Gatti against Mayweather. They used to just go 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever it was, straight in with the main event.
Right, yeah.
They've obviously stopped doing that. I didn't watch it, Steve. I just fast forwarded it. I think he won by knockout. I'm not sure.
He did. He won in the second round. Just for your scores, though, to Jacobs, 118-109, 119-108, and 120-107 to Jacobs.
Yeah, and I've not really got any argument with any of them.
Andy, before we move on, tell me about the heavyweights. I didn't see the Jarrell Miller-Marius Wack fight, 9th round knockout. He's lining up Miller, isn't he, Hearn? I think he likes his banter. It's if not for Joshua, then maybe for Dillian White, but probably for Joshua, I think.
See, it's based off that. I think Joshua would absolutely destroy Miller. I really do. He's slow. Okay, he's carrying a fair bit. I don't know what it was the other night. Was it 290 or something? It was
300 pounds against Gerald Washington, and he's ranked number 5 with the IBF.
There was 40 stone in the ring last night.
Wack as well, man. This fight's been booked for a while, and to see Wack coming in that shape, I mean, saggy tits. I mean, guy. I could have sent him my wife's bra to put on. Actually, I mean, the fit of them, but he was just awful. He looked like he never even trained for that fight. As I say, I don't think he's even a good barometer to actually even tell us where Jarrell Miller's actually at. I mean, okay, he's took 9 rounds with the guy. I just think the guy's way overweight, way overhyped, or way overrated anyway. As you say, Steve, is he getting lined up by Hearn at some point to either fight like a White or AJ? Certainly somebody you can have kind of sitting in the background that you could pull in at the last minute or whatever and stuff. But no, I've not seen it. But the guy, as I say, he's laborious on his feet. He's no real good foot movement. He kind of shuffles forward. You know, Dig's decent enough. I mean, I suppose the guy's what 290 or whatever. I mean, if you got a 290-pound guy hitting you, it's going to be sore, isn't it? But I just don't see it with the guy at all. Sorry, I'm maybe sounding like a hater or whatever and that, but I just don't see it.
I went into last night thinking that Miller was absolutely nailed on for AJ. They've already talked about one of the fights next year being in America, and I thought Miller was nailed on. But after seeing that, I think it's a bit of a difficult sell because Miller is massively out of shape, as Andy said. He's not he's put a lot of his punches were just like tip tappy really to me last night. There was no real standing back throwing a right hand. I mean, I was watching it thinking if we see Miller against Dillian White, you don't want to be seeing the right hands on Joe in that fight because neither of them can fucking throw one. I don't know. I think he'll fight AJ now. I don't know. I just don't think he's good enough. He has got a bit of banter and he looks because he's tippy-tappy and because Wack was offering absolutely nothing last night. I mean, as we got towards the second half of how many rounds were completed? 9.
Yeah.
As, we got past 4 or 5 rounds. Wack was just, not doing anything really to trouble Miller, and Miller was just standing right in front of him, having it completely his own way. I don't think we learnt a lot about Miller, and I do not want to see him in with AJ.
All White. I agree with you about White, Smith. I was thinking there, what about Jarrell Miller versus Dillian White? You could have, there's the tagline, someone's rotator cuff has got to go.
So, yeah. I mean, don't get me started on Dillian White. I mean, Dillian White is the sole proprietor in my 3-week hiatus from boxing. That is just pissed me off, generally.
Smido's pissed off, but he's back. That's the main thing, everybody. Right, just before we move on to the Scotland card, a slight tangential point I'm going to make, actually, just thinking about Danny Jacobs, and a few guys on Twitter earlier were talking, obviously, we know about his well-documented struggles with cancer and stuff. It actually reminded me of a guy whose name I just wanted to throw out there, because a few people might not remember this guy. He actually passed away in 2013 of gallbladder cancer, I think it was, Omar Henry. I remember interviewing Omar in about 2012 for Boxing News, Hot Prospects. And real nice guy. Cameron Duncan managed him, real good team. He was going places. He was 12-0 with 1 draw, 9 knockouts. You can see him on YouTube. Real good fighter. Looked like he was on course for titles. And then unfortunately, he got struck down with gallbladder cancer. And 2 months later, maybe 3 months later, I think it was, the guy was dead. 2013 it was, 25 years of age. So just wanted to throw the name out there, Omar Henry, just so we don't forget this guy. Obviously, what happened to Danny Jacobs was sad, and just wanted to give Omar a mention because he was a top guy and a top prospect. Anyway, just moving on to the Scotland card, Andy, you were stuck in traffic last night trying to get home after Josh Taylor's 9th round dismantling of Miguel Vasquez. Vasquez looked a bit like Diego Costa from what I could see on the telly, but he's maybe seen better days, but he showed he's still a tricky operator because I like the head movement from Vasquez. He was ducking, he was slipping, he was blocking, he was cagey. He gave Taylor a lot to think about, and I think that was the perfect performance from Taylor. He lost a few rounds, he won a lot of rounds, he got rid of a guy really tough and tricky at world level. I'll give Barry his due, which I often haven't done in the past. I think it was good matchmaking and a really good performance.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously a very experienced operator. You know, he is tough, never knocked out. Maybe no good. You know, even at 135, he didn't really have that much power. But I thought he was frustrating Taylor at times last night. I don't know if it was maybe Josh wanting to kind of really make a statement. I'll tell you one thing about him though, about Taylor is see when he bites down on that gum shield, he is one nasty big bastard. By the way, he loves to go to war and just tear it right up. And some of those shots last night were absolutely brutal. He was throwing them with full power. You know, I think I commented on Twitter just about the third round or something like that. You could see that the right hands that he was landing early to the body, but the third round that were having an effect on Vasquez. You could see that, you know, from my vantage point, you could see clearly on Vasquez's face that he was struggling with it. You know, but the fifth, I think, you know, really, I was looking at it at that point that Vasquez was really kind of blowing heavy. He tried his best. I mean, early doors, he tried to kind of match Josh. You know, every time Josh maybe threw him 2 or 3 punches and that, Vasquez would try to counter, and he would try to leap in with 1 or 2 punches, and he would sometimes kind of leave the head kind of low, and I think that's what caused the cut. I think it was the second round or whatever it was. But in the end, you know, just ultimately he just wore him down, walked him down. He would learn an absolute massive amount there last night compared to likes of fighting, I don't know, maybe like a Tyrone Nuss, for example, or Jack Cattrall. You know, that type of opponent would do him absolute wonders. And as I says, I know there's a question coming up on Josh's next couple of fights and stuff, so I'll maybe leave his future till we get that question coming up. But yeah, I mean, the crowd was absolutely, they were bang up for it last night. You know, he's grown in numbers each time. The arena, location-wise, it's handy, but it's a hell of a lot kind of walking about. No really signposted all that well, and the security was pretty lax, and they weren't really kind of knowing where to put you. But I understand why they put it there, because in Edinburgh there's no really kind of like the big indoor arenas that you can actually kind of put in more people. He's already filled at the Meadowbank Arena, so you know that only holds 4,000. I would say that estimately that would be about 5,000 or 6,000 in there last night. So he's doing really well. He's getting a crowd. You know, everybody after the fight, you know, they're trying to get up to him and speak to him and stuff. He was taking pictures, and that was good to see Vasquez getting a round of applause after the pageantry was over, and that when they walked out the ring and stuff, he got a round of applause, and a few of the Scottish boys shook his hand and stuff like that. Gave him a bit of respect, which was good to see. It was good to see kind of Josh as well, inviting the guy out for a pint. You know, that's what it is. You know, as El Shepo said on Twitter, you know, he knocked the cunt out. You pick him up, offer him to buy him a pint. You know, so that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You know, as I say again, it's I think Josh says he was kind of switched off a wee bit during the fight and that. As I say, he was tagged a couple of times. I did think, you know, he was getting slightly over aggressive, maybe slightly frustrated at times and that, but I just think that's who he is. He just loves to, you know, once he gets in that rhythm, and once he's in the inside, specifically in the inside and that, you know, it was really kind of digging in those body shots, that wanting to match, you know, just go to town, show heavy shots and stuff. So the power's obviously there. Clearly he was a bigger guy compared to Vasquez, but obviously the experience, you just kind of count that out. But statement made, I did say it last week, I thought Josh would have won on points, but you know, to actually go and actually stop the guy in 9 rounds, body shot again. You know, is there a better fighter in Britain? Definitely in Scotland, but is there any fighter in Britain who works a body as good as Josh Taylor does? You know, I don't think there is. So who?
William White, the body snatcher.
Dillian White, aye. So I mean, you know, I quite enjoyed the card there last night. I mean, it was good to see Martin Bakole get his was his first title he picked up. Okay, it was some sort of kind of IBO continental. But see, to be honest, you know, we actually, you know, okay, I'm going to sound like a slight hypocrite here, but we shite on these titles. But see if you've seen his reaction after that fight there last night, by the way, it meant the absolute world to him. He was, after he did his interview, he was in amongst the crowd and stuff, like high five and hugging people. It meant absolutely everything to him. So I'm not going to go too heavy on the big man, but slightly disappointed with Jason Easton a wee bit, because I thought he kind of maybe negated the body work. You know, he was really kind of headhunting there last night, really kind of pushing for the stoppage. That guy fought okay, he's undefeated, 9-0 stuff. So you just think you're going to get these Czech guys, but he was in shape, so he was training for that fight, and he was tough. He took a fair fucking punches in that fight, like. And I did think that Jason was really kind of pushing for that stoppage, but I thought he would have got it if he just kind of worked the body a wee bit more and kind of slowed the guy down, but it wasn't to be. But I suppose he got 12 rounds under his belt, so that's good experience for him and that. So onwards and upwards. Lee McGregor looked good. Okay, he's expected to look good against who he fought in his pro debut, but you know, big things expected of Lee as well. So things are starting to pick up in Scotland a wee bit, especially on the East Coast anyway. The Edinburgh guys, it really is picking up, and it was a really good atmosphere last night, and really good performance from Josh.
And Andy, the question is the IBO Continental Heavyweight title a better title than the auspicious Republic of Poland international title?
Yeah, that one's up for debate, mate. We need to put that one to a poll, but the one that I heard the one last night was it the BT card. Was there some sort of kind of IBO Intercontinental Silver title or something like on the line? So that's kind of like extracted the urine a wee bit. Aye.
The IBF are running an East-West Europe title now.
Seen that one kicking about a couple of times. Aye.
We'll have a bullshit title on here. Rob, I've said before about Taylor on Channel 5. I think it's doing him the world of good being on terrestrial TV. The big win over O'Hara Davis, another good win over Vasquez. I think they've got the matchmaking right for what domestic audiences want. If you're a casual fan or whatever sitting on a Saturday night, got Channel 5 to domestic TV, that's the type of fights you want to see. I think they've got it right at the moment.
I think Taylor's definitely got the attributes, as we said, to go on and do better things. Two good fights for him at that level, and two emphatic stoppages, which makes him look even better, because if he cruises the points decision, maybe he's not going to capture the public's imagination, but if you can see him putting people away, then there's going to be a bit more romanticism from their point of view. But I think he's got a couple of kinks to iron out, obviously, with his defense. I think a lot of fighters from over here in the UK and in general need to work on defense more, but like just minor things, he's gonna learn as he goes up. But he's definitely one of the guys that has the attributes that for a Scottish fighter that we would say, based on what we've seen so far, that he could go ahead and win a world title. I'd love to see him do it. And we spoke on it before on the show about body shot stoppages, but it's always great to see him. He dug to the body last night, so credit to him.
Yeah, we'll have a good body shot finish on here. Ozzy, Liam Winthrough questioning. Rob was mentioning there, Taylor, a little bit about his attributes, and Liam was asking, good performance from Taylor tonight. In terms of moving forwards towards a world title shot, what do you think he needs to improve on to progress? I mean, he got cut last night. Obviously, these things happen. He gets hit a little bit too much at times, but that's part of the appeal, I think, as a headliner on Channel 5.
Yeah, I would say you can't help being cut. You can't do anything about that. You're susceptible to cuts or not. He does get tagged, but it also reaffirms that he can take a shot. He was hit by O'Hara Davis quite a few times, and they bang on about his power, how it's unbelievable, and he took everything he threw at him. So aside from ironing out little bits like that, I would say he's not far off world level. I would say he's not the best domestically, purely for the fact because he's long gone past that now. What's the point in going back there now? It's pointless. He's fringe. He's 2 fights off a world title, I think. Or, depending on who it's against, I think you could chuck him in his next fight. If you're being overprotective, it'd be the end of next year.
Maybe the European title you get would be a good one if it doesn't open up, yeah.
Yeah, he's fighting on that Cyclone Bill in December.
Oh, is he? Right, okay.
Yeah, he's got Joe Hughes, but he will smash Yigit to pieces. Absolutely smash him to pieces. Taylor, he essentially, Yigit will be tailor-made for him. And for me, I don't want to talk about the opponents if there's a question coming, but there's a few that I know I've mentioned that I would like to see him in with next, and then let's go for it. What someone of his level, what's the point in holding him back? You can grow stagnated then. They do a very good job, Cyclone, and I'm sure they'll match him on a similar, if not better level next, and then look to get that world title. And hopefully they can bring it, and he can have home advantage in Scotland.
TaylorMade says, Aussie, loving that pun. That was as good as Smido's earlier on, foot leading with the head. Smido, talking of you.
Steve, there's a better one. There's been a better one that's gone completely unnoticed tonight. You said about the Polish, what was the title you said?
Republic of Poland international title.
And Andy replied, we'll need to do a poll on that to find out. And it went completely unnoticed, but I was on mute, so I didn't want to interrupt.
That's okay, throwing them in. And Andy was mentioning earlier, Smido and the guys have been talking about it there. I can't remember who asked the question, I didn't save it on my phone, about maybe Taylor's next 2 or 3 fights. I mean, I'm looking at the rankings here. WBC, Crawford's dropping that one. Lipinets has got the IBF. They're all very, sort of brazen last night. Oh, Taylor would smash Lipinets. He's the best junior welterweight in the world, all these type of things. Maybe slow it down a bit. Taylor showed a lot of potential, and I think he would beat a lot of guys at the weight. But who would you be looking to put him in next? Maybe pushing him on for the world title if the vacant shot did become available.
I think it's one of them where they probably would take it, especially if it's vacant and they've got a chance of getting it over in Scotland, and where Andy says he's building a little bit of a support up there. I haven't seen it yet, but I do think that it was excellent matchmaking. I thought that beforehand, and I definitely think it now, given the result. Former world titleist, rugged, never been stopped or rarely stopped. I'd really like the Yigit fight, and I think that taking on the likes of O'Hara. They've shown that they're not scared of taking on someone who's young and supposedly hungry, as O'Hara was meant to be. Yigit falls into that bracket. I think that's makeable. It's reasonably cheap, and I would like to see that next.
And last night, Smido, I was flickering my laptop there. Did you mention the actual performance?
I've not seen it.
No problem. The fight Andy was referring to and myself earlier is next Saturday night. Thomas Adamek, 51-5. He's still going. He's fighting Fred Cassie for the vacant Republic of Poland international heavyweight title. We shall keep you updated next week with all the results of that card.
That's like the time when Ashley Theophane fought for that German boxing union title. Was it? Wasn't it mentioned that one actually? I mean, how the fuck does is it Cassie? He's an American, isn't he? How the fuck does he get the fight for a Polish heavyweight title? It's fucking insane.
That's boxing for you.
Yeah.
The wonderful world of boxing. Right, Gabe, we haven't heard enough from you tonight. I'm going to rectify that now. Let's go over to the final fight from the weekend. Bob Arum's top rank. Artur Beterbiev, 12th round knockout against Enrico Koelling. Beterbiev was going through the motions a little bit at times, I thought. The crowd were booing, but it was a crowd that were very pro-Ramirez, who was on the undercard. They wanted to see action. Beterbiev, I didn't think I'd ever see him being booed at this stage of his career as a real knockout artist, but he seemed to struggle a little bit with Koelling, I thought. He had his hands up high, the German. Beterbiev was punching against the guard a lot. He didn't show a lot of variation. Has he been, I don't want to use the word exposed as such, but maybe we've seen a slightly one-dimensional element from Beterbiev, or is it just a case, Gabe, you get the job done when you're fighting for a world title and worry about the performance later?
I don't know. I mean, I've never been that high on the guy. I wasn't impressed last night. I felt a little bit like the crowd. The fight was just kind of slow. It wasn't all that exciting. He didn't really seem to be either mentally there, or maybe he just didn't know really how to work against what that guy was doing. I just thought Koelling was there to be there. He didn't really give anything dramatic or inspiring or worthy of winning the fight. He was just there to survive. And so sometimes that can be the case. I think we've all seen those fights where, the opponent comes in and they're just looking to survive. They're not really there to win the fight. Maybe they hope they can land some miracle shot and knock somebody out, but I think it's a little bit absurd. I wasn't impressed by what Beterbiev did. I definitely wasn't impressed by his opponent. Like you said, he won the fight. Give him credit for winning the fight. next time out, he'll look to be better off. May just had a down night. Yeah, like I said, I've never been that high on the guy. He's a good fighter, a good solid fighter, but he, at some point he'll be boxed around the ring, and when that point happens, there'll be a lot of people that say, "Oh, well, look at that fight. He struggled with this guy," and I don't really put too much stock into it. Not a great fight, not too impressed. Nah.
Gabe, just before you run off, actually, I was asking to Dave Loback about this last week. This fight was at the Save Mart Arena. Can you verify for Save Mart? Do you shop in there?
I don't think there's any in Texas, man. I think it may be one of those California stores, or maybe they have like a different area. Never seen one. Don't
go to Save Mart, says Gabe. Right.
Well, I'm out in fucking sticks too, though. You got to remember.
Rob, one of the more interesting things about this fight was the constant battle that was going on between Teddy Atlas, Joe Tessitore, and Mark Kriegel, who I think is a boxing writer from America, on the Top Rank feed. Atlas wasn't impressed. I think he was moaning about Koelling, saying he came to lose well and look good in defeat rather than actually win the fight. And Tessitore was trying to lay a bit of the blame at Beterbiev's door. I think it was the fact that the fight wasn't really that interesting, that they were having this back and forward argument. Where would you sit if indeed you saw the fight? Do you think Koelling could have done a bit more, or was he just looking to lose well?
I can understand where he's coming from, because you see fighters do that sometimes, especially against the likes of Beterbiev or Kovalev. You see him sometimes when they get touched by the power, they just think, not tonight. I'll coast to the 12 rounds. He can beat me, but he's not knocking me out. That way. So sometimes that can happen. But Beterbiev showed like he's maybe a little bit one-dimensional. I always thought like people were saying that he beat Water. I always thought Water beat him. But I'm a big SOG stan. So, but I just think. No, it's a routine win for him. We see what's next. We see how he looks next night. Maybe this is how you beat him. Like if you apply a little bit more pressure, as well as having a good defense, you might be able to take it away from him. I can see how he reacts to that. But we'll see what's next for him.
Indeed. So wins on the undercard for Jose Carlos Ramirez, who apparently sells like over 1,000 tickets. He knocked out Mike indeed Reed in the second round. Loving that nickname. Johnny Garcia lost to Amir Imam, and Alex Saucedo, who is a bit of a prospect in some areas, knocked out Gustavo Vittori. Smido, did you see this card?
Nope.
Okay, Andy, just looking at Beterbiev, I want to see him in an all guns blazing fight. I don't want to mess around. He's 32 now. He's a decorated amateur. He can clearly punch. I want to see him in with the likes of a Kovalev or a Sullivan Barrera or a Bivol or somebody like that. All guns blazing. Let's get it on. No messing about.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I think one of the main questions I want to know about Beterbiev is, can he, well, especially against someone that can actually bang, can he take a shot? Too often some of these huge bangers or people who can actually kind of like vaporize you and stuff, can they take a dig? So as you say, I want to see him step it up. I mean, he's really, as you say, he's 32 now. He's got to be pushing, really got to be pushing heavy now to try and get out. I think I read somewhere that the lawsuit with his previous promoter or his manager still hasn't expired, or it's still ongoing. But let's be honest here. I would favour Gvozdyk over him. I would favour Bivol over him. I don't know about Stephenson. Stephenson might just. I really hate to say it, but I think Stephenson could actually probably beat him. But if you put him in the likes of maybe Barrera, Alvarez, to see where he's at, I think those are kind of decent fights, and then maybe go for a Badou Jack fight. But it says off that last night, it was kind of like ponderous. He was kind of shuffling forward and stuff. Okay, you could argue that he's been at the ring for, what is it, close to a year now, so there is going to be some sort of kind of rust. But let's be real here. I mean, I watched that first fight against Rebo Leibenberg, Eric Collins, and he's no great shake. So to kind of go that length of distance in the fight with a guy who I don't highly rate, it takes points off you. But at the end of the day, he says you've got to kind of like understand that he's been at the ring a year. Maybe he wanted to work on a few things. I really don't know. Maybe he wanted the rounds under his belt, so to speak, but he should have been dealing with the likes of Koelling a lot earlier than that, in my opinion.
Koelling almost lulled Beterbiev into like a snake charmer at one point. Teddy Atlas made the point himself. Koelling was throwing that less and doing that little and just trying to avoid Beterbiev. He all of a sudden landed a left hook out the balloon. It like sort of shocked Beterbiev. He wasn't expecting this guy to throw anything.
That's what I'm saying, mate. I mean, you just don't know. You know, as you say, maybe he switched off during the fight. He's just kind of played along with whatever and that. You know, to be honest, see during that fight, I was kind of actually kind of getting bored of watching it. It was kind of like, you know, like sitting on my phone on Twitter or whatever and that, kind of like mucking about. So the stoppage, I suppose, in the end, you know, for me, you know, you want plus points for myself, even though it doesn't mean much. You got to be doing with the guy a lot earlier.
Steve, what I would say about light heavy is we might have lost the top kid probably in the whole sport, but we've got to be excited by what's left. I mean, Bivol, Beterbiev, Kovalev, Stephenson, Badu Jack's a great addition to the division.
Gvozdyk.
Yeah, so we'll be hard pressed to pick one standout of those guys named, and I think that they need to crack on and fight each other. And I think there's a lot of will, not from the likes of Stephenson, but from most others to get it on. So it's exciting times in that division.
Well, that's the point, isn't it, Ozzy? Just closing with you. Smido's right. The names are there, but we need to see them fighting each other. It's, you know, it's the usual boxing bullshit. Stevenson, the guy is a complete irrelevance. I mean, is he going to defend against Alvarez? Is he going to pluck somebody else out the rankings? We just don't know. I want to see Stevenson fighting Beterbiev now, but it just ain't going to happen.
No, he's a prick. He's a fucking prick. He's irrelevant. He literally holds a belt, but I couldn't give a toss about him. He does nothing for me. I think light heavy is the perfect weight for the next World Boxing Super Series. I think there's enough top names there. And like the cruiserweights, it's probably the best way to get the big names in with each other, offer them huge stacks of cash, put the final on in some random, pay millions of dollars for it, and let's get it on. In terms of Stevenson, there's talk that this Badu Jack fight might be happening, and I saw something that they're going to pay the mandatory like $1 million to step aside. Thinking, wow, well, it must be a serious. If that's true, then I mean, fair dues to the guy. The mandatory's rubbing his hands, but whether it does happen is another thing. I mean, what is he now? Is he 40? Is he 41? Adonis Stevenson?
He's definitely in his 40s, mate.
Yeah, so it's like, how long has he really got left?
Well, see, honestly, he's not really taking any fights or any risks that's actually going to even deter his career or take any punishment.
No,
it's like mother. It's like, you know, unless his age is going to, like, you know, actually fuck up with his athleticism or whatever it is, unless he actually gets absolutely old overnight. But who knows?
I don't understand him. Is it him being poorly advised, or I really don't understand it. He's boxing like once a year against rubbish, and then he just goes into the wilderness again. It's a really, really bizarre career, and in a division where he could earn decent money, he seemingly is just not interested. He's happy just keeping the belt, defending it once, and that, as I said, he just goes missing. And like I said, I couldn't care about him. The sooner he loses or retires, the better.
Ozzy, on a different note, actually, while we've got you on, we're looking at this Selby DeGale card that's coming up soon. No opponents have been named at the moment that we know. There are a few rumours for the Selby. I haven't heard of DeGale rumours. A lot of people complaining on Twitter. It is pretty poor stuff. You're hoping behind the scenes they've got somebody tied up because time's ticking. It's
tomorrow they're going to be announced. It's, from what I was told, it's Nathaniel May for Lee Selby. And is it... I don't know. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but is it Caleb? Is it Truax or Trua? He lost to Danny Jacobs.
Oh, Caleb Truax, yeah. Oh,
Truax, yeah.
It's all right, like.
So that's what I've been told. This was apparently they were made contact a couple of weeks ago, so they've had reasonable enough time, not a lot, but at the same time, I never expected anything. These two opponents, because Selby's next two fights, should he win, are going to be Josh Warrington and Carl Frampton. You can't turn your nose up at that. And then DeGale, they're going to look to unify with Benavidez in the early new year. So, as much as I think they're not great, but get these two out of the way, and it means 2018 there's big fights for the pair of them.
I'm wondering about if this is a DeGale defence then or something, because I'm looking down the IBF rankings and there's Caleb Plant who's quite highly ranked, but I don't see Truax anywhere.
he should be. From what I saw, he went in at 15 in the last IBF rankings.
Yeah, I must be looking at old rankings or something.
Yeah, he went. They were announced last week, and he appeared anyway. Because I'd heard the name muttered, and then anyway on his Twitter, conveniently he's put out saying hoping to finalise a huge fight for me. That reaffirmed from a mate of mine what he said, that it's obviously got the legs in it, unless anything's fallen through. But that's what I've been told. I know nothing about Nathaniel May. I think he's Australian. Doesn't look any good. Yeah, it doesn't look any. I don't know anything about him, but you would like to think Selby gets rid of him relatively early.
Hopefully so. Before we move on to the previews for next week and then get out of here, I have a question from Stuart Roberts. I'm going to ask it to you, Rob. Yeah, Rob's back with us. Right, question from Stuart Roberts. He says, going back in history, prior to Floyd, who would be the first... I'm making a bollocks of this, sorry. Right. Going back in history, prior to Floyd Mayweather, who would be the first fighter you would come across that you would consider to be better than Floyd, pound for pound? Maybe a prime Roy Jones, as per a recent tweet from Tommy, or would you have to go back as far as Sugar Ray Leonard? So what do you think then, Rob? This is interesting. The use of the word better, I suppose, is important in this. How far would you have to go back before Floyd to find a fighter, pound for pound, that would be better than Floyd? I would say Roy Jones myself. What about you, Rob? Rob's not with us. Andy, do you want to jump in and answer that one?
Best fighter pound for pound since Floyd.
Before Floyd. So you've got Floyd, right, and we all agree that he's the best fighter of his generation or whatever. Go before Floyd, and who is the first fighter you come to pre-Floyd that would be better than Floyd? Roy Jones, maybe? Or would you have to go back as far as Sugar Ray Leonard?
Pound for pound. So this person must have been ranked pound for pound number one.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming so, but I'm saying maybe like on their achievements or their ability. You know, Floyd is the man, say, and how far do you have to go back before you find someone who would top him, be better than him for whatever they achieved in your eyes? I would say Jones, myself, personally.
This is going to take a wee bit of thinking, but try to think. Well, I don't know if Tony was ranked, but I always rated Tony as one of the best defensive skill fighters that I've seen. You know, especially when I was growing up as a kid. Anyway, you know, James Toney was the guy, but Roy Jones definitely up there. Can I deny that?
I think on a Floyd level, I know what you're saying, but if you look at the respective careers, like Tony, you'd have to take into account the losses to the likes of Drake Thadze, the drug thing, maybe, if you want to. I don't know. The fact that he was lost to guys he should have beaten, the poor performances. Would you take things into consideration? If you would, I would say obviously then it couldn't be Tony personally.
Definitely kind of stains the legacy. Well, then what about Hopkins? You know, coming up, you know, no Hopkins.
Not for me over Floyd. No, Jones maybe at a push, and Leonard definitely, but not Hopkins. No.
Well, I remember Duran came number one after he beat Leonard. So that's going back to 1980, 82, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I think there was a couple of Asian fighters actually. They were quite highly ranked, but obviously, you know, back at it's a weird divisions, and you know, you just know for a fact is that, you know, a lot of people are not really going to put a lot of kind of stock or a lot of credibility into some of these kind of weird guys, especially on who they fight and that. That's a tough one actually. I need to kind of sit and think about rankings and that, but you know, Jones is a good shout, but
Floyd's a high bar, isn't he? Really, you know, judging in and out of the ring.
Aye, but what was the full context of that question again?
Right, Floyd is obviously the best fighter of recent generations. How far back before Floyd do you have to go before you find someone that you would rank above him, say in the all-time pound for pounds, or a fighter that you would say overall was better than Floyd?
I'm kind of taking some overtones to that question. I'm thinking this person's a big Floyd fan. He's probably saying that Floyd's the best ever.
Well, yeah, interesting, because he mentioned Tommy tweeting out about Jones being better than Floyd. So that was in the context of the question. So maybe our friend Mr. Roberts is saying that he's not, or he wants to, you know, bring it out to the wider point to us guys and see what we think. I would say Jones myself.
Yep, that's a fair shout. There's nothing kind of springing to mind to me at the minute. So I think if you're talking about most recent, Jones is probably up there, but then you've got like say Holyfield maybe. A bit Holyfield, considering he did it cruiserweight coming up, but I don't know if was he ever ranked for pound number 1.
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know.
Tyson.
It's all a fucking myth. Pound for pound is just a imaginary list that people make up. I mean, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
The question is kind of ignorant. I mean, you're trying to compare apples to oranges. How are you going to compare a welterweight, not even a career welterweight, to a guy that fought, in 2 divisions if you're talking about Holyfield? I mean, rightfully so. It's hard to compare those 2 guys. If you're talking about Floyd's career and Roy Jones, and there's certainly more parallels there. I mean, if you're asking on opinion, then you can always go with Roy Jones. That's a safe bet. But if you're going with like guys that were ranked number 1 in a pound for pound list, well, then it's all going to be bullshit, because you have guys like Teddy Atlas with the craziest bird shit, pound for pound list that you've ever seen. So, I mean, the question is a little bit absurd. Pound for pound is whatever you think it is at any given point in time.
Yeah, I think it's opinion based, Gabe. Obviously, I don't think we can look at pure facts, because, like you say, you've got Jones as super middle light heavyweight going up to heavyweight. How do you put those achievements in the context of Floyd going from super featherweight to welterweight? It's like you say, you can't really judge on factual basis, but it's opinions, really. I want to hear your opinion.
Oscar.
No, not higher than Floyd. No. I know I was an Oscar fan. Anyway, we'll move on. I think it's cut and dried with Roy Jones for me.
Yeah, Roy Jones, or you could say Pernell Whitaker, or I think Ray Leonard beats him. There's all the Hearns, Duran, any of them could have potentially beaten him. So is he? You know what I mean? Is he that great? Like, he's a great fighter. Like, he's the greatest defensive fighter of this generation. But I'd say Hopkins is up there in terms of ability with him as well. I think.
What about
Duran?
What was I going to say? What about a prime Chavez running about lightweight, super featherweight?
You know what I mean? Even Meldrick Taylor, I think, would have given him a good fight. So he came maybe at the right time too. He did beat a lot of good guys along the way, but he probably came at the right time.
Well said. Right, let's move on. What have we got coming up next week? Before we go on to Frampton, let's get the other bits and pieces out the way. Gabe, Julian Williams against Ishe Smith in Las Vegas. Any interest in this? Williams on the comeback trail after the Charlo loss. I think he's had a fight since. Do you think he could make waves down at light middleweight? Is Ishe Smith the man to test him?
I don't know. Next week, just to put it the way I see it, not to say that the fights aren't going to be good, or that they're, there's anything particularly poor with them. It's just, for me, whenever I'm looking at it, I see just a bunch of basically showcase fights for guys. I don't see anything. There was one card. I'm thinking there's a card somewhere with a couple of good fights, a couple title fights on it.
In Belfast, the one I'm going to, Conlon and Koyas is on.
Yeah, there you go. It's on the Frampton card.
That's the one.
There's another one on there. I can't remember who it is. I'm sorry, back to your original question, Williams and Smith. I'm not particularly interested in it. I've never been a fan of watching Ishe Smith. I mean, I'll watch it, but if I can find it, I don't even know what station it'll be on. But if it's on, I'll find it. I'll probably watch it. Just not anything to write home about is what I'm expecting.
And you were mentioning one there, Anthony Durrell against Mama's boy, Dennis Duglin. Do you know what I saw during the week for the first time? I'd never seen this before. Post-fight, Andre Durrell against Arthur Abraham. Flip me, no wonder nobody likes the Durrells. Never seen anything like it. Have you seen that after Durrell got hit by Abraham back in the Super Series? And he's there going, I lost. And they go, no, you won, you won.
And he's fucking crying. That was not a fight camp series. He's just sitting there crying and I can't see and...
I got knocked out. No, you didn't.
Oh, see, it was even funny actually. See, like on the follow-up episode of that, I remember Darrell trying to. He got asked the question about if he went to go and see a neurosurgeon or whatever it was, and you could see Darrell trying to kind of. What was that guy's name again, chaps? I forgot his name. What was it? Dr. Shawhai. And you're like, so and then people are they're on the forums and stuff. They're trying to find who's this Dr. Shawhai running about Flint, Michigan. There's no Dr. Shawhai registered in any sort of medical practice anywhere in America. So.
Yeah.
These investigators, but obviously, it's going to be pay-per-view, that one, mate.
But Anthony Durrell, he's going to get rid of Duglin, probably get himself some kind of a shot, and it rolls on the circus, doesn't it?
Shit, mate. absolute shit.
I actually like Anthony Durrell. I can't stand Andre Durrell, but Anthony's okay.
Right, let's get on to the big one. Then we'll get Belly of the Weeks out the way, and then we shall get out of here. Adam Smith, let's go to you first. Saturday the 18th of November, the SSE Arena, the old Odyssey. I shall be there. We have Jerwin Ankayas defending his IBF super flyweight title against Jamie Conlon. We've got Carl Frampton against Horacio Garcia in the main event. Zolani Tete defending his WBO bantamweight belt against Sibaniso Gonya. Darryl Williams against Lennox Clark, which should be a good fight. 16-0 against 15-0. Not sure why it's in Belfast, but anyway. Paddy Barnes has yet to find an opponent for the WBO European flyweight title. He's bound to be strong when he gets drafted in. Unfortunately, John O'Carroll and Declan Geraghty, the rematch is off because Geraghty's got injured. What stands out for you, Smido? Start with Frampton and work on.
Steve, I'm completely the wrong person to go to on this card. I think Conlon's an accident been waiting to happen. I was hoping to get involved from a betting perspective, but the champ is rightly priced up as the favourite, so I was hoping for a better price there, and I won't be getting one. Tete is absolutely world class. We just need to see it. It's a shame that he just can't find any opponents that we've ever heard of. I've never heard of Siboncio Gonya. Never heard of it.
Gonya, I think, is maybe South African. The fight was supposed to take place in South Africa, but they couldn't get the funding, so he's had to be moved here. I think the thing is with Tete, Smido, if he wants to fight with the likes of Burnett or any of the other champions, he has to look impressive, because last time, he made Guillermo Rigondo look like Arturo Gatti because he was frigging woeful.
Yeah, I just think that he's, since he fought Paul Butler and beat him in an absolutely fantastic performance in 2015, he's only had, how many fights he had? 2, 4, 5. He's had 5 fights against hardly anyone who I've ever heard of. The last time, as you said, the boring fight against that villain Nuova, I'd heard of him. But Frampton, I hadn't heard of his opponent either, but this is just, he's only a 10-rounder.
Yeah, so he fought Jojo Diaz, this opponent.
Yeah, I just think that Frampton, it's just to get him out, keep him busy, and
Smido's been thrown off the call, unfortunately. Smido doesn't know anything about Horacio Garcia. He should have bought today's Sunday Life and found out my preview. That would have maybe enlightened him a little bit. Smido, you back with us? We lost you there. What happened?
Oh, God knows.
Carry on.
Obviously, the Hangouts heard that I was winging it and talking shit, so cut me off. Yeah, I think Jamie Conlon will get beat probably in another war again. Tete needs to look good, and I hope he does. Frampton's in a showcase fight before fighting Selby or Warrington next year. I'm out.
Smido's out, everybody. Good to have him back. Andy, yep, same to you as well. Bit of Frampton, hopefully get the ring rust off or whatever. I was talking to Neil Sinclair during the week, former world title challenger. He said it's about looking good for Frampton, not just about winning. He has to put on a performance here.
I've never seen the opponent, mate. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at him or not, but I think a wee cameo appearance when they go a miss here. Obviously, kind of get himself back into kind of title contention. I'm really looking forward to the Cajas Conlon fight, though. I really do expect this to be an absolute war. It's a matter of whose skin or chin holds up best, because I think these two just go to the centre ring and absolutely bang it out. I remember watching Cajas win his world title. I think it was against Joe Arroyo, I think it was. And the Arroyo fight, so he basically kind of handled the guy pretty easily on points, and then at the end of the day, so he works the body pretty well, this guy. So it'll be interesting. I think I'm not going to make any call on it. Obviously, I would imagine Cajas is the betting favourite. Speedo, can you help me out there?
Yeah, he said he is. Yeah.
Yeah, is he? So
it's not going 4 or 5 rounds, I don't think, either way. Like,
you think no? You think it's going to be?
Jamie cuts as well, doesn't he? It's going to be an absolute war, I think.
That's what I says, mate. It's whoever's chin or skin holds up first. I really hope Jamie wins it, actually. Is there a better fighter pound for pound that sterling-wise to watch?
You couldn't meet a nicer fellow as well than Jamie Conlon.
Yep, true.
He's massive. He's a massive underdog. To be fair, he's 1-6. The champ, Jamie Conlon's 4-1. So that is quite a big swing there. He's not as favoured as Carl Frampton, who's 1-200, but that's a different story.
And the thing is about Conlon as well, Andy, I was remembering it actually, he made his debut in this arena in 2009 on the Martin Rogan, Sam Sexton first fight as well.
Interesting.
And he got cut.
Got cut then. He's had a couple of fights there since there is. They don't fight. There's no one of the fights absolute fucking war fest.
Yeah.
Was it Somos fight or something? It was like a 7-rounder or something. But as I say, he's always going to be value for money. As I say, I really hope he pulls it off because I remember I had Mick on the call actually months ago, and when I asked him about how. Basically, how come you fight differently to how Jamie does and stuff? So well, Jamie's a kind of come forward warrior, but he has got the tools to actually box if he wants to. But when he gets tagged, he wants to go to war. But that being the case, you just wonder how many of these fights can Jamie keep putting forward because it doesn't matter how old you are; these punches will add up at some point. And he's got scar tissue as well with all the cuts he's had in the past and stuff. And as you say, Steve, he's going to probably get cut again. So. If he's going to do it, I think he's probably have to go all in early and maybe just try force a stoppage and just try and impose his will and get Cajas to quit. Just on the topic, actually, I don't know if it's still the case, but I'm sure this was Cajas was Manny Pacquiao's first world champion.
Yes, that's right.
As a promoter as well, so a wee bit of useless factor for the listeners.
Were you going to chuck something in there, Smid?
No, not really.
No problem. Ozzy, let's go on to you. Looking down the undercard, I'm not expecting you to comment on any of these, but just to throw a few names out for the listeners for the future. David Oliver Joyce down at lightweight 4-0. Had a lot of wars with Carl Frampton in the amateurs, actually. He's definitely going to be one to look out for. Lewis Crocker, big punching welterweight. He's going well. Alex Dickinson, a Liverpool heavyweight. He's been on a couple of Belfast shows. Gary Cully and Big Tommy McCarthy as well. Just start us off with this one, Ozzy, if you know anything about it. Darryl Williams, we've obviously seen him having the fights with Jermaine Smile, I think it was. Williams is a Vicky Hatton fighter. He barks during fights, which is quite bizarre. And Lennox Clark, Warsaw's finest, who maybe should have got press past Paul on. That's a good English super middleweight title fight going on there.
Yeah, definitely. I echo your views. I don't know why it's on in Belfast. But I did hear it wasn't going ahead at all, so I don't really know what the situation is. But yeah, brilliant, real good English title fight. It's a step up for Lennox Clark, who drew his last fight against Darryl Williams. 2 exciting fights with Jermaine Smile. So yeah, fingers crossed it is on, and it should make for good viewing.
And tell us about Conlan, Frampton, also a word, which is the other big one, Tete as well, if you can.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. I think the Conlan fight will be the fight of the night. Will probably steal the show. There's a lot of people talking up Jamie Conlan and thinking he can do this. I'm not too sure. He gets that involved. Now I wonder if they're genuinely going to try and stay out of the way and try and use some of these skills that he's apparently got. Tete, as you said, I remember putting that out when it was announced about the Gagne fight, that it should have been a homecoming for Zolani Tete in South Africa, but like I said, the government wouldn't fund it, so essentially Frank picked it up. It's costing peanuts, thrown it on over here, and they're using it as a way that they can try and big up the Ryan Burnett fight. They're putting him on in front of a bumper crowd in Belfast. So it's pretty smart in a way. It's not the best of fights, but if he can destroy this guy, it's like I said, it can help talk up a Burnett fight. Then that's good for 2018. Frampton, completely agree. It's a case of looking good. It's been not the best of the past 10 months really for Frampton. He obviously had the mishap where his opponent slipped in the shower, which is just a freak accident, and he's had all the behind the scenes changes. It's a case of get 4 or 5 rounds under his belt with Jamie Moore in his corner and then get rid of this guy, and then it's huge things for 2018. I know Frank's got wins apart booked already, so he's obviously, I think he's banking on a Selby fight there, so that's exciting. I've no idea about who Paddy Barnes is going to be in with. They were on about announcing an opponent 4 or 5 weeks ago, so not seen anything about that. And a shame about John O'Carroll as well and Declan Geraghty. I was looking forward to that. That'd have been a real good fight. Now, did I hear a rumor that is it Kakachi?
Anthony Kakachi was supposed to be jumping in, and if he is, that's a good fight as well. But I'm annoyed because the first Carol Geraghty fight was actually on the Matthew Macklin Jorge Sebastian Highland undercard. Yes. It was a really good fight, and I was looking forward to the rematch.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? A hand injury. Geraghty's no reason to pull out, so it's a real shame that. And fingers crossed it can be made for essentially the next time they're over in Belfast. But if Kakachi jumps in, then that's just as good, if not a better fight.
Yeah, you're right as well about Williams-Clark. Unfortunately, Ozzy, Mr. Dermo1 has been in touch on Twitter and says indeed he doesn't think Williams-Clark's going ahead.
See, that I'm not really sure what the plan is then, because I know BT usually show 4 fights from about 7:30. Now, realistically, you've only got Frampton, Tete, and Conlon fights.
It'd be Paddy Barnes as well, I think, won't it?
Oh, of course, yeah, but they're pretty strict of sort that they don't want the rubbish on, because it's a new market for them. They don't want Barnes in against some Bulgarian plumber. They're usually pretty strict on that, so it'd be interesting to see who they pull in, or potentially if Carol Kakachi's on, it might be that, and then Barnes kicks off the Box Nation show. I'm not too sure, but fingers crossed we hear some announcements tomorrow for all these guys' opponents. I think the ones lower down the card, like Tommy McCarthy, Marco McCulloch, I presume they'll just be in routine knockover jobs, to be honest.
Certainly, Rob, bit of interest in this Belfast card for you, especially for Jamie Conlon. I'm sure you're rooting for him as well, as tough a task as it is. And Frampton, I'm not so sure he will get rid of this Garcia. I think he might have to see out the distance, to be honest. This guy is pretty tough. He is wide open to a right uppercut, though. I was doing a bit of research on him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a routine-ish enough outing for Cal. I don't think he's in any danger of getting beaten by this guy. It just depends the manner in which he beats him. So is he going to... I'd say there's going to be some evident ring rust with Frampton because he's been out for a while now. But this is just a homecoming fight, and because of that, I'm not that invested in it. Down the card.
About rooting for Conlon.
Oh, Conlon, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to Conlon, I don't wonder how many times a fighter can go. He's always in high drama fights, with the win. But in that, sometimes he makes it more difficult for himself. So I like to see him use those tools that Jamie spoke about. Or that Mick spoke about rather, and let's see him box a little bit, see can he do it. But I'm rooting for him. I think if he's going to do it, this is his chance. So.
Yeah, but hopefully so. Andy, I asked you about this card, didn't I?
You did, mate. Yeah. Yeah,
it's Gabe as well. Gabe, I know that you have no interest in these Euro bums, as our friend hater Dave Lowback, who's off at a shooting range apparently. Hope he doesn't do himself any damage. Any Conlon and Kayas or Frampton? Tell me about Frampton, Gabe. Are you pleased to see him back in the mix? And I mean, a rubber match with Santa Cruz doesn't look like it's going to take place anytime soon, but there's unfinished business there.
Please, someone get a hammer and smash me in the face before I watch that shit again. Both of those guys. I wasn't thrilled about the first fight. Wasn't thrilled about the second fight. Not thrilled about seeing it a third time. Santa Cruz and Frampton both deserve each other in purgatory forever. They can fight for whatever meaningless strap it is they have. I'm not saying either guy's particularly that terrible a fighter. I mean, obviously they've been world champions. They put on a decent scrap, but you're just not going to get any respect from me for either one of those guys. I think they're both rubbish. I think they both should just piss off for all I care. I don't know.
Gabe's in full hater mode.
I can't stand either one of them. You mentioned Leo Santa Cruz to me, and my fucking ears turn as red as the devil's ass. I just can't stand either one of them. I just don't like either one of them. Maybe they'll both knock each other out next time they fight, and it'll be over with. Not interested in that fight. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to skip any Frampton fight from this point forward. But I will try to get on with the Conlon fight and the other one.
Gabe's raging, man. Gabe's fucking raging.
Gabe, I take it we're not going to be hearing from you next week because you've shit on every fight.
No. I didn't mean that. They're all I mean, we talked about the Darrell fight earlier. That's a showcase fight. I don't see that one being that big a deal. The other ones, I didn't think that were that big a deal. This card has some better fights on it. Unfortunately, I'm just not familiar with everyone on this card. I don't have as much access to see them as I guess you guys do. So that could be a part of it. But if we were talking about those guys, I think Conlon can win. I don't see why he can't win. I guess maybe it's because I haven't seen tons of Encajas that much. I just don't see why he can't win. I mean, I'm not saying that he will win. I just don't see why he can't. So that one to me looks like the best fight on the card, only because I don't know anything about the other guy that's fighting for a title. So,
Gabe, just before we go on to Value of the Weeks, then tell me, who's your favourite Texas fighter of all time?
Texas fighter, huh? That's a tough one.
You can actually include Mexicans as well, saying as you're close to the border.
Yeah, I was about to say we can do that. Yeah, that works. Well, I mean, guys that I've got to watch and guys that I appreciated, I've always been. Let's see.
Wasn't David Diaz from Texas?
Was he? I think he might have been. No, he wasn't. I was thinking he was from somewhere else. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm drawing blanks on this one. Come back to me.
Okay, Texas's finest, Gabe there. Right, let's move on to the Value of the Weeks, and then we shall get out of here. We've got Ozzy left on the call, Gabe Lewis and Andy Patterson. Right, first one from me, sent in from Dal Singh. This is the British Boxing News, had their British Boxing rankings out, and they had Amir Khan in them. Dal Singh says, having Khan anywhere near that top 10 is surely Value of the Week material. He last fought in May 2016. I can't believe that. Is that the last time he fought? May 2016. My God, he has been out the ring for a long time. I think he's returning to some celebrity or some X Factor or one of them things, I think, isn't he? What is it, the jungle or something I think he's going into?
I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
That's the one.
That's what he's doing. I'd heard about it last night. I didn't tweet anything out about it because I thought it was just absolutely laughable. I mean, fuck's sake. I mean, this guy's doing everything possible to get paid without actually fighting. I mean, okay, he's got back with the wife, good, to be honest, it's not the kids' fault that the parents are arseholes. So if anything, at least they're back together and maybe try and make it work for the kids, bare minimum, until they're old enough to look after themselves and they can go on their own fucking roads. But I don't know what to make about this at all. I mean, I know Nigel Benn's been on it before. I really don't know. I mean, is this what his career's coming to? An absolute parody? He's got to go into fucking reality TV shows and eat, fucking crocodiles' arseholes and donkey fucking bollocks and ostrich eggs and all that type of shit. I mean, come on, is this what it's all about? Is this what it's all about now? I mean, next minute he's going to be on Big Fucking Brother. I mean, come on, you just get in the ring and fucking fight. But okay, I'll maybe cut him some slack on this one, considering how he's been knocked out in the past, right? Him no fighting again would probably do not just us a world of good, but it would do his health a lot of good, because you just don't know what damage he's took brain-wise. I mean, he's not the brightest spark in Christendom as it is at the best of times, but those are quite horrendous knockouts he's had in the past, and it's going to leave a mark. And he's what is he, 30 now? He didn't want to be kind of reaching in 20 years' time. You're kind of coming down with slight cases of dementia or whatever, and that. So maybe this is going to be his new role. Punditry, reality TV stuff. I don't know. Who knows? Whatever he's doing, it's no fucking fighting. I know that much, and we're still anywhere near closer to getting a Kell Brook fight. And to be honest, I ain't interested in that fight anymore. We'd heard word, we got told that apparently this fight could be possible. I got told last night that he was looking to sign a 3-fight deal with Eddie Hearn. Clearly, that's not going to be happening anytime soon now, because he's going to be spending the next, I'm assuming 6 weeks in Australia, Christmas, New Year. I mean, it's going to be at least April or May time before he even gets his arse back in the ring, if that ever happens.
Yep, let's move on. Gabe's still coming up with these great Texas fighters there. He's got his list.
I've got
George Foreman, mate. How the fuck did you pick out George Foreman out of that list?
Don Curry, I think, was from Texas as well.
He was.
Who?
Don Curry.
Lloyd Honeyghan beat
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
You're right about David Diaz, though. He was from Chicago. But I believe you're going to throw in a man who has a couple of great fights that are often overlooked against Clarence Bones Adams. One, Paulie Ayala.
Aye.
Yeah, Paulie Ayala was one. He actually, last I knew, he had a gym out in Fort Worth, which is only a few hours from me. So that's one guy. I mean, I think the real problem I was having trouble coming up with it was because a lot of the guys are either, quite a bit before my time, or they're really
Eddie Booker.
Steve Cruz.
Yeah. I mean, you have Andy said George Foreman, Zora Foley,
Errol Spence
from Texas. Errol Spence, the Charlo brothers. Tex Cobb was from Texas. As far as guys that I actually got to watch somewhat, I always enjoyed Jerry Belmonte's. He had a bad streak of losses there before he ended his career, but I enjoyed watching him fight. I don't know. That's probably just a Texas thing. But there's not really like whenever you're talking about like the premier top of the top, everybody knows them kind of fighters, except for George Foreman. I mean, everybody knows fucking George Foreman.
Jack Johnson.
Well, I don't know if most people know that he's from Texas.
Galveston.
Yeah. What was his name? The Galveston Giant, or the Giant of Galveston, or something like that?
Galveston Giant. I think you mentioned Ayala. Was he the brother of Tony? Him got done for the rape conviction and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Tony Ayala. Yeah, I forgot about him. Wasn't he supposed to be one of the best of the best, but he couldn't stop like raping people?
He was a heroin addict. He very strung out in heroin and that. He was meant to fight Davy Moore, and then obviously he got arrested, and then that's when Duran stepped in.
Ayala broke into somebody's house, didn't he? I think
a few times, mate. He's broken a few times to folks' houses and actually just like abused the woman that's been in there.
I think he was in trouble most of his life. I mean, he was a guy that was going to do big things.
He claimed that his dad actually Harvey Weinstein them. No, Kevin Spacey them. Claimed that he'd been fondled by his dad.
I know that really? He was super talented though, wasn't he?
It was. If you watch Tony Ayala, man, he when he knocked a fight. I remember one fight I watched. It was on one of these old VHS tapes I used to have. And that I remember him spitting at opponent, and when he knocked him down, that guy fought with absolute rage. You talk about like rage on Twitter, but we're talking like 10 times that. This guy was just like pent up aggression every single way.
Yeah,
any more, Gabe?
He was a bad dude. He was a bad seed. He actually died, I think, a couple years back from an overdose. I think he was finally out of prison. And
yes, he was in San Antonio, Texas. I have it up here, and he died from an overdose in 2015.
Yeah, see, I mean, he was always troubled. I don't ever remember much of the guy. I don't think I saw too much of him. I mean, I know the name, and I've seen some stuff on him, but never really that big on him. But yeah, I mean, I guess Jack Johnson and George Foreman are the two big ones. But as far as guys that I've actually got to watch, definitely it's got to be Paulie Ayala, because I mean, I got to see more of him actually fighting whenever it was going on. George, Jack Johnson, any of the stuff I've seen on those guys has been all from the past, stuff that's after the fact. But getting to see somebody actually in it now, Paulie Ayala, definitely fun to watch. Definitely a great boxer. He
fought Eric Morales, didn't he?
Say again?
He fought Eric Morales, didn't he?
Talking about Paulie here.
Yeah, Paulie fought Eric Morales, I think, didn't he?
He fought Tapia as well. This is the same guy, eh?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah. He fought several of them, and then he fought Marco Barrero once too, I think.
Maybe it was Barrero I was thinking of. Anyway, right, that's fine. Let's get on with the Bellew of the Weeks. Thanks for that, Gabe. First one was for Amir Khan. Next one was for the WBC president. He was talking about Deontay Wilder's win against Bermane Stiverne. I saw Ali, Tyson, and Holmes all in one, he said. Must have been quick. Ben Churchard has said Billy Joe Saunders, apparently he was asking Michelle Phelps if she wants to try flange. I didn't actually see that one. But
that was brilliant. It was really good, actually. She said something like, she was asking him about his diet, he's eating this ostrich stuff and that, and he says, he asked her, have you ever tried flange? She's like, no. And she's like, really serious in that. He says, you've never tried flange before? And you can see Billy then look across like the gym and that, looking at somebody. Well, obviously she would have fun out in the end there, but
nomination then for whoever. Charles Lindner has nominated Daniel Gaskill for calling Conor Benn a future undisputed champ. Boris has nominated Spencer Fearon for his top 5 current heavyweights. Joshua, Wilder, Ortiz, Dillian White. The reasoning, because he wants to fight people. Dillian White is a top 5 heavyweight because he wants to fight people.
Is it no? Name those 5 names again.
Well, there's only 4 actually. Joshua, Wilder, Ortiz, and Dillian White.
So basically, all guys who are non-white.
Well, I don't know about that, but Joshua Wilder I can understand, but Ortiz is a drug cheat and Dillian White isn't very good, so I don't know what Spencer's on about. I'm blocked by Spencer, so I don't get to see these witticisms, but people do screenshot them for me, so thanks for that anyway. Right, Harry Heath has nominated Daniel Allen. Daniel said, I just visualised and had a daydream about fighting Adonis Stephenson for the WBC light heavyweight title, and Dave Caldwell was my coach. He lifted me aloft and everything after knocking Adonis out. Crazy stuff. What the this guy must be on the mushrooms or something. Although saying that, Andy, you could see Adonis defending against a guy like him, man. He's fought worse.
Oh, I mean,
this is just a random punter on Twitter.
Adonis Stevenson's career is just age, man. I mean, it says, I mean, come on. It says all when TV companies won't even pick up your next fucking fight. That he's not fighting Badou Jack. Is that the who's been? Is that
he's trying to get Alvarez out the way, isn't he?
Aye, but I think they might be able to sidestep that. If I remember, pay him off a few quid, and that'll be that.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Dave Caldwell liked that tweet, so he obviously likes Daniel's vision. Brian King has nominated Sean Horgan. Sean tweeted to Eddie and to Sky Sports Boxing and said, "Anything you can do about getting EA Sports to make a new boxing game?" I don't know
I've seen that.
don't know what he's tweeting Eddie for, but sure. Anyway, Goulartista has nominated Lee Skinner.
Oh.
Lee Skinner was talking about Hellenius, isn't it? Clueless as ever, Danny. If you really knew about boxing, you'd know that Hellenius was always highly ranked and was only 2nd boxer after Vlad to KO both. And then I can't see the rest of the tweet, but it was pretty bad, Andy.
Lamont Brewster and Samuel Peter. He was a ring top 10 for many years, and at the time of the white fight, Hellenius was ranked number 9 in the IBF. My fuck.
Getting as bad as you, Gabe.
Oh man, that guy's something else. Yeah, I think there is a little bit of truth there. He was before the Del Chisora fight. He was ranked a little bit high, wasn't he? I think he was. I think he was actually ranked, but many years, and I don't think anybody with a real pair of eyes that works would say anything like that.
Just proves the rankings are bullshit, really. Which we knew anyway.
Well, I think so. You got to remember that was in the midst of the Klitschko reign, where you know, I think we'll talk about this more as the years go by when we're all old and gray and shit. But
talk about what? The Hellenius career?
No, not Hellenius. Not Hellenius. I'm getting to that. We'll talk about how.
Oh, please don't.
Era of Klitschko was. Every time you had a big guy, a guy with some size to him that was tall and wasn't, 75 pounds overweight, people looked at him like, is this the guy that can challenge Klitschko? I mean, I don't know if you guys see it, but if you look back, anybody that could that could have been a possibility to rival the Klitschkos got a look from everyone. Not maybe from everyone, but from a lot of people. Well, and he fit that mold because it was still when Klitschko was on top of things. So, I mean, he was ranked. I'm not saying the rankings were right, but he was ranked, and I think there were people that were actually thinking he was going to be the guy to pull the trick.
Right, Spencer Fearon has he's been nominated by Luke Eaton. Spencer says, "Big up Bronze Bomber, but like I said, he's the champion of America. But Anthony Joshua is the champion of the world, whole wide world. That's my bar, not Eddie Hearn or Johnny Nelson's." Oh, this is a good one. 0110 sent me this in. A-Star Boxing put it up. Dillian White on Soccer AM. Did anybody see it?
Oh,
he took a penalty and he made a complete balls up of it. He kicked it like a girl, and then they give him another chance, and he did exactly the same again.
Yep, my 5-year-old could do better than that.
It was pretty bad.
Seriously, she could.
Tony D has said, "If David Haye is injured, I'm going to cry." Boris has nominated him. Who's this? Let's have a look. Oh, yeah, apparently Paul Dempsey was calling Ronald McIntosh Ronald McDonald again last night. He just can't learn. He can't learn, can he? He just keeps on doing it over and over again. Also, Anthony Joshua has been nominated. We had these great speeches from Joe Frazier going on about boxing is the only sport where you can get your brain shook, your money took, and your name in the Undertaker book. Muhammad Ali talking about wrestling alligators. Cus D'Amato, to see a man beaten not by a better opponent but by himself is a tragedy. All these great sayings in the sport. And then Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, get fit, you fat fuck.
It was kind of funny for Eddie last week. I mean, Eddie, there's StubHub offices getting raided for, but I think it's the cops anyway. Eddie fucks off to America and AJ turns rogue. And he's apparently arguing with fucking fake beef Cougar Cassius. I think that was all I set up.
I'm loving this new AJ. I'm loving it, man. It was brilliant.
That was bullshit. It's all fake beef at the end of the day, innit?
Yeah, it was funny. Jordan Wills nominated Aaron Aspinall. Aspinall says, congratulations, Liam Beefy Smith. Came out on top again. That's all that matters. As a proud Welshman, I almost feel like a traitor not rooting for Liam Williams. But those Team Smith brothers are a different gravy. Okay, Brian King has nominated Matchroom Boxing for saying that it's filling up in here in the NYCB live stadium. And Danny Young, that was Danny Young's question. I was talking about Taylor's next 3 fights earlier, but we discussed that. Danny Robson has nominated BBC Sport for saying that Josh Taylor beat Miguel Marquez. Who's this? Our Proud Gooner said, impressive stoppage from the Light Destroyer last night. Great debut in the States. Can see Conor Benn being moved quickly like Joshua. David Farmer has nominated him for Bellew of the Week. And Joe Ringer put one in as well. Bellew of the Week for Adam Smith, the commentator. He mentions 3 undefeated fighters that Ben has beaten this year. Their records were 4-0, 4-1, and 5-1-1. And AJ Glutes has nominated me for last week on the pod, saying that Mick Hennessy is punching above his weight. Surely that's not possible. Yes, I shall take that one on the chin. Big fat Mick punching above his weight. Andy, any from you?
Martin Murray for basically offering the winner Arias against Jacobs for a fight. That was very nice of him. WBC for basically putting Dillian White as #1 contender. I had another one somewhere. Give me a second.
Well, while you're looking for that, I've had one sent in from John Swan. Daniel White was talking about Conor Benn earlier. Looks more destructive than his father, but he's the same chin and heart, says Daniel White.
Fucking hell. I think that was the only one I had. I've not got it. But I'll put that one in. Rob
wants to give Amir Khan a special Bellew of the Week nomination, he says. So that's fine, I can do that. Gabe, do you have any nominations for Bellew of the Week this week? Anybody who's annoyed you with some shit talking?
Nah, not really.
Ozzy, finally for you?
No, nothing from me.
Okay, did you have any more, Andy?
No, mate, but I'm voting for Amir Khan for going into the I'm a Celebrity.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to vote for Dillian White for his penalty shootout effort. Ozzy, who are you going for?
The bloke that said Conor Benn is more destructive than his dad, but has the same heart and chin.
That was Daniel White. A late entrant from Daniel could win. Gabe, what about you? Who are you going for? Gabe?
Sorry, I had myself muted. What was it the WBC president said, the first one that you talked about?
Oh, yeah, he said that Wilder reminded him of Ali, Holmes, and Tyson. I think
no, wait, I've got a late entry coming in there. I just remembered. Anybody see the tweet from Mauricio Solomon today?
Which one was that?
Was it about the flags?
Yep. I mean, he's basically kind of introduced this new thing now, right? Apparently that was swapping like your national flag with your opponent. So like Australian and American flag or whatever, and that. But that's the most important thing, you know. They're trying to kind of promote this brotherhood. Meanwhile, you've got fucking fighters failing drug tests, and your rankings are shot to shit. So I think that's more important to get fucking fixed out first before you start kind of swapping flags as some sort of kind of solidarity bullshit.
Well said, Andy. Well said. So it's a bit of a four-way tie, really, but there's been a few strong entrants. So I'm happy to give the Bellew of the Week to all four. A four-way tie, Andy. They can swap flags with each other. They can swap Bellew of the Week trophies with each other as well if they want.
Super duper regular interim titles. That's all we've got to do, mate.
We're all about the sanctioning fees.
Exactly that.
Excellent stuff. Right, let's wrap this up. We've got nothing more to talk about as far as I know. Thanks to everyone for jumping on. The 251st edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast, week in, week out. We'll be with you. Don't forget Punches from the Past. We mentioned James Toney earlier. I have got a special with him on Patreon coming up at the end of the month. Also, Hopkins Trinidad, isn't it? That's dropping, Andy, on Monday on Patreon.
Yep, I think the editing's all been completed for the audio and stuff, so I think it should be way shortly, and it should be getting some good stuff in that.
It's dropping tomorrow. We also have a Paul Ingle special as well, so get on over to Patreon. People seem to be enjoying it. We're doing a question and answer session as well next month. Apparently you can do YouTube Hangouts live just through Patreon with subscribers, so we're going to try and put that together if we can. If anybody's subscribed and interested, then we'll try and do that, shall we?
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. Gabe Lewis was there on with us, Ozzy Smith, Andy Patterson, Smido, Rob Kelly, and of course our special guest Andy Lee. Thanks for Andy for spending a good 20-25 minutes with us at the beginning of the show. We're going to hopefully have another guest for you as well next week. Get your questions in early if you can. I've been Steve Wellings. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you next week. Bye.
Eddie's a grass.